I mean, it was like 186
And
emails.
we're
Oh,
live.
shit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome
Welcome
to
everybody to the
Talking Shit
Hangouts.
Friday.
We're
Shut the
talking
fuck
about,
up,
or we
Judy.
were thinking about talking about feminism. Now we're talking about everything under the sun.
Because they hate women.
That's true. I fucking hate and detest women. That's.
Patriarchy.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I actually love
We
women.
hate women comes from a woman. Big surprise there.
The important thing is that I found diamonds.
Yeah, and a ton
We
of
can call
gold.
off air now. That's it.
Yeah. You have a ton of gold, you can make a nice rail system right there.
Yeah, I found quite a bit of gold there. It's nice.
Yeah, I saw it.
Who's recapping?
Oh, okay. So I'll do the recapping. So right before we went on live, we were having a discussion of whether or not we can apply Bayesian reasoning to the existence of the supernatural. And so Bayesian reasoning is when you look to the base knowledge that everybody agrees is the case. These are your priors, and then you kind of try to defer in your set of evidence which count towards a specific hypothesis and which would count against a specific hypothesis. And then from that, you would garner which hypothesis is more likely out of two, and you would stick to that one in terms of what provides the best explanation. Now, in terms of this, let's have the hypotheses represent, for example, naturalism versus the Christian worldview, or maybe even just a broader theistic worldview. Which one kind of comes out on top? And that's what I was saying. And Dreadnought came in and said, well, we also have to assume there that the supernatural is going to conform to our intuitive assumptions about the world. Like whenever we discuss nature, we look to regularities. We assume that no wonky thing is just going to happen, and that's even something Bayesian inferences kind of have to assume.
Doesn't Bayesian theory require that you have some, research and evidence to go on first? Because it doesn't be established that there is such a thing as supernatural, much less determining whether some supernatural thing exists. We have to that there's something other than the natural first, other than what we observe every day.
So is nature something that is a byproduct or an effect of the supernatural, or is it something that's self-existent?
Well, no, I mean you're asking the question too early. We still established that supernatural is a thing before we start making the questions about this.
Well, think of the question as kind of a segue into it. So the point is, what both sides assume is the case is that the natural realm exists, but what is it? And there are things within the natural realm that are going to go for the hypothesis that it is the byproduct of some kind of creative intelligence. And then there's going to be something which is also good, and then there are going to be some things which count against it. Now, in terms of the philosophy of religion, what people have used against the hypothesis is the existence of evil, divine hiddenness, and quite a few other arguments as well. Whereas for the hypothesis, things such as design, Robin Collins has been kind of the forefront on that one, and also fine-tuning. Another one is the existence of consciousness. Richard Swinburne has kind of been the one pushing that one. And then from there, you kind of assess which one is more likely. So this is kind of the method that's been going on, at least recently in the literature and philosophy of religion. Now, so this is kind of the evidence that is being cited. Now, some Christians have tried to mitigate the problems of evil, and some naturalists try to mitigate or come up with natural plausibilities for naturalism, despite the look of fine-tuning.
Or just feed cows,
Despite
they're sweet.
Yeah. So, and Dreadnought, I believe you were pointing out that. Actually, I'll let you make your point. Maybe this way it'll give me a chance to not talk.
Oh no, I have no problem just kind of sitting back. But the issue is that when we're trying to discern what is, I guess, natural and supernatural, trying to use Bayesian reasoning in this instance, we have to discern, not even discern, we have to assume that methodological naturalism is correct. I mean, that as a basis, because it's working with what we find intuitive. So if
Right.
things not popping in and out of existence is intuitive to our brains, then how would we use this type of reasoning to monitor and to record the activities of electrons which pop in and out of existence, for lack of a better term? You know, they jump fields, and that's why we have to use these models with the kind of the orbital type of image in order to form some type of basic understanding for those who aren't in these particular fields to, you know, actually study it. So that's the kind of the error that I see, that, you know, not even error, it's kind of an issue when we're trying to figure out what actually is happening in the past, because it just runs into problems just running based on intuition.
Right. So in terms of the intuitive stuff, if there was a model that, let's just say somebody came up with a model that captured all the positives, or at least most of the same positives that we have in contemporary theoretical physics, without the wonkiness of things popping in and out of existence, for lack of a better term. Although I'm not going to get into the particulars of that. Um, that newer theory would be something which on the Bayesian inference would be more plausible, because it doesn't have the drawback of having things pop in and out of existence. Even though the theory in other places is much stronger, I think the notion of it having kind of a difficulty in things popping in and out of existence would prove a counter to it. That's not to say that the theory is unscientific or wrong, or doesn't suffice in kind of explaining the phenomenon we observe. But in terms of comparing and contrasting, I don't really see any problems with that per se. As in terms of things being counterintuitive, yeah, I mean, there are going to be things which are counterintuitive, but that's only going to be a problem if you want to say that something is absolutely the case. So in terms of that, like if you measure probability on a percentage from 0 to 100, probability is supposed to get you somewhere in between. And even though the probabilities might be wrong, like maybe there's a 60% probability that God exists, but still wrong anyway, it doesn't mean that there was a higher probability. It just means that we didn't have enough to go on. But if the only thing you want to get out of the whole thing is going to be the best explanation thus far, then that's really all you need for your conclusion. It's not to get at 100% accuracy. It's just to get on what is most likely, all things considered.
Yeah, and then that's actually a good point. For the probability of something happening, the methodology you use, I think, would have to conform to whether you believe that anything is possible or that there are certain limitations, and that's kind of the overarching issue that I see, because I can not even without any type of evidence, I can say there's a 0.000001 chance that one person is going to be born with the abilities to undermine the laws of gravity, and for whatever case, this is so. Now, this is just purely conjecture on my part, yet me reducing the probability of it down to this remarkably low number would not entail this actually being the case. There would have to be something to comport to reality to show that here is what's happening, here's what we're observing, and here's the evidence to support said claim, that this possibility is even within the realm of something we could comprehend. Now, we could just say, there is something that's happening that we don't know, and we just won't know or won't ever know, then that's fine. But something like that would have to remove itself completely from all the laws and observable facts about nature that we have so far determined, and that just by default would be considered supernatural. There would have to be then a standard set for this is the cutoff point from methodological naturalism. Now we can say, all right, we can depart from there and put it in this separate category, which would then be considered supernatural and have its own standard to be judged by.
Right. And yeah, that's kind of the interesting delineation. In terms of the methodological naturalism, we keep that in store to kind of relegate the purview of science and to make the options a whole lot more narrower in terms of explanation. When it comes, if we were to consider all possible supernatural explanations on top of naturalistic ones, then the enterprise of science would just be, then the sun would be just much more swamped with ideas. When if you have a standard of having it comport to the methods of what we can naturally observe, it's a whole lot easier. And this is where we take much wider measure. This is where it's kind of left for a more philosophical discussion, because tools of philosophy are much more basic than tools of science, which are much more specific and accurate. And this is why it's more to a far more general and open reasoning. This is why you only take into account the laws of logical probability, of logical possibility, not to mention some metaphysical principles, which would at least be needed to kind of illustrate what we can probably count as a possibility, like, for example, the existence of immaterial things, whether or not mental activity has to be connected with physical activity, that sort of stuff. Oh, and also probably discussions of things like ethics, which aren't really something which science determines or is in the purview of science, even though we could get scientific information to help us out there. So,
wish I could comment, Maximus, but you got me beat, buddy.
Oh,
and we got Simon in the room. Any comments, Simon?
Unfortunately not. I'm just not up to speed on it.
JD's really quiet, which is strange.
He's mining for diamonds.
Yeah.
Diamonds are awesome.
Diamonds are
JD is just strange overall.
Well, I mean, the thing is, all this stuff that Max is talking about may be interesting to Max as a Christian, but in this sense, I kind of side with Gus, which is like, that's nice, where's God? It's kind of a flippant way to put it, but you can go through theories and ideas all you want. Well, I don't really call them theories at all. I mean, they're just still just hypotheses, and there's really nothing to support them. There's really no way to differentiate between one God and another, especially when the definitions make them capable of rewriting reality. And so, at some point, you're like, okay, well, what should we definitely see? Well, it's a personal God. It should come in one. It wants a relationship with us. All right, that's something I can work with. In which case, you go back to, well, then where is it? Apparently, he's talked to you, but wouldn't a God who knows who we are, who created us, knows that our primary way of understanding reality is induction? So where is he? He knows that we should, for us to believe that he exists and for others to believe us, it's going to be you need a predictive explanation. And yet he wants us to only know him through personal experience. It doesn't make any sense. And so, I mean, and this is a problem for all personal gods.
Right. All right.
So I mean, you go through Bayesian theory you want. Well, in that case, Bayesian theory, at some point, we're like, okay, well, the fact that the God never shows up is pretty strong evidence, pretty strong reason to think that it's probably not the case. So how do you get the Bayesian theory to pop out? Yes, Yahweh, God exists, and his name is Yahweh.
All right. So Myers. All right. So there are 2 points to delineate. One is kind of your point of divine hiddenness, and that just actually can factor into the Bayesian analysis. You would just count against the hypothesis, and you can make a pretty strong case on why it would count against the hypothesis. This isn't just interesting to me. It's actually quite interesting to a lot of people who are participating in philosophy of religion who are atheists. My friend Justin Schieber is someone who argues against my position. He cites a lot of arguments. He's an atheist, and we find the same thing to be interesting between us. Also, my own university professor, J.L. Schellenberg, himself is someone who's really interested in this question. Again, atheist. When it
Can we
comes to the question,
can we call no true atheist on him? Because he's teaching.
yeah,
Sounds good.
sounds good, but wouldn't be. I don't think it would be fair to him.
We're getting to the terms of some of my best friends are atheists.
The only point I'm just trying to make here is that it is something that indicates justification for, or it's something that indicates knowledge, and it's something that both Christians and atheists are working together to provide kind of a concrete method where we could determine one way or another. It's just that the interpretation of the evidence is kind of the difference. As to the whole...
Oh, that sounds way too AIG right there. It's the interpretation of the evidence. And evidence isn't really interpreted. It's kind of a...
Yes, wait, what? It isn't? Yes, it is.
I mean, evidence points one way or the other. It's anything put forth in favor of an assertion. You don't interpret it. You're like, okay, which way, how much evidence is there? You don't interpret it because evidence can't point to two different things. Facts can. But evidence is whatever is forth of a particular assertion. It can have evidence that points to two different things. It would be evidence then.
Well, that's what I meant. The facts. So the facts would be there, but it's just your interpretation that would lead you to conclude that sets of facts lead to evidence on one hypothesis over another. If you think that the fact of God's hiddenness shows or indicates evidence against God's existence, then yeah, that would be evidence against God's existence.
Well, I mean, again, you could make the same thing against like the supergiant unicorn that created everything's model of existence. The thing is,
all right,
we have a first starting point of is there reason to think it exists in the first place before we start forming models to demonstrate that maybe it is or maybe it isn't.
Hey, if you want to formulate,
you got a starting point. Usually, is that you just come with an idea. You test. You look for some reason to think is the case first, and they're like, okay, now we've got all this data. It's actually something I argue with. I didn't argue. Ozzy and I were discussing it for a little bit. That, well, not just me. Anyway, that the supernatural isn't prevalent enough to really say X, Y, or Z about it, say if it even exists. We've got a handful of claims, but they're always just a mess. Personal experience. Fatima, where it's like people staring at the sun and suddenly the sun acts weird. Gee, well, eyes don't do that. And so what we have is all these interesting bits in history and then personal experience. Well, personal experience you kind of throw aside because they don't really corroborate each other. People who have images of God, they're all different. They all want different things, and none of them really make a whole lot of sense. They all there's all kinds of issues with that. And so what you're left with is the historical narrative. Well, historically, the supernatural, while there are claims to supernatural, no one ever says, oh, well, since it says in this book, it's likely the supernatural thing happened, because we don't see the supernatural today. It seems once video cameras and cameras were invented, suddenly the supernatural stopped occurring in front of other people. Supposedly the dead, according to Matthew, the dead rose and were going to visit their relatives. No one would, so if this happened today, that'd be, that'd be a thing, but why isn't it happening today? Why don't supernatural things happen in front of large groups that could be easily confirmed? Because obviously the dead walk around visiting relatives, everybody would be writing about that. This would not be one book. This would be everyone in Rome was like, you would not believe what happened. First, this giant angel came down and moved a rock. And then, I don't know, some Messiah thing was going on there. I'm not sure about that. But, dude, my relatives came back and were saying, and they've been dead for years. This would just be written about everywhere. We would not have lost documents. We would have too many. And yet, where is the story?
Don't you go making sense now, JD. Don't you go making sense.
Sorry.
So here's what I'm curious about. You seem to be doing here's what I'm curious about. You seem to be doing the same thing I am, but arguing for atheism. Like, this is exactly what the basic...
I'm not actually arguing for atheism. I'm arguing that Yahweh is not real.
Well, to argue against Yahweh being... So to argue against Yahweh not being real is, in fact, point plus for the naturalistic...
well, no, not at all. I mean, I could be a Muslim and argue against your version of Yahweh. I could be a Jew. My position actually doesn't matter here.
Yeah, well,
yes, I am an atheist. I am a philosophical naturalist. But at this point, and I have arguments to defend those positions. But in this case, I don't really need them because it's not philosophical naturalism or Yahweh. It's Yahweh or Yahweh doesn't exist.
So here's the thing, though. I mean, if you're comparing the probability of hypothesis 1 versus hypothesis 2, and let's just say we're only just comparing.
Well, okay, well that's where the problem is right now.
Wait, let me finish here for a minute. Okay, look, since there's only 2 worldviews coming to the table, there's only need to compare and contrast 2 of them. If we want to go for the divine unicorn position that you were arguing earlier, we would have that hypothesis there, only if there was a third person arguing for it. If there isn't, then I don't see any point to bring it up. And if someone is earnestly trying to bring it up for sake of comparison, then we can gladly do one.
Again, my issue is I don't need to bring anything to the table. Where it's like, okay, you think this is part of reality, let's hear why, and then you can say, well, why do you think? You don't need to compare the two as if like there's only 2 options. You simply say, all right, well, what is your position? What is yours? And it's possible that neither of us has a very good answer. But to say that one is more likely true because it just doesn't work that way.
Well, if we are content on holding the worldview that is the most correct, then somebody is going to have to give up theirs if they are indeed trying to pursue it. I mean, if Christianity is more likely than philosophical naturalism, then take up Christianity, or at least reconsider your philosophical naturalism.
Yeah, but this ignores the simple "I don't know" or "I'm not sure" position. You don't really have to oh well, this one's is in trouble, so I'm going to adopt this one until other one comes along. That's not really a good way to go about. Well,
you mean falsifying models and taking up more accurate ones? Isn't a way.
Well, you falsify a model, and that doesn't drop you to another model. That means you don't have a model yet.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Well, yeah.
Naturalism is not like the default position. It does seem kind of obvious, but it's not necessarily the default position.
Right.
So, yeah, if attacking your model doesn't mean that naturalism is more likely true, because the answer is, well, it could be freaking anything. I mean, if we're only giving ourselves what's logically possible, then there's a laundry list of things we could go through. So, attacking your position, if I were to do that, would not really help mine. It's only saying, well, I think you don't have a very good answer. It could be I could have a worse answer. I could be a Muslim, which I think is slightly more demonstrably false than Christianity. Slightly. Well, actually, no. Actually, that's too. It's very much more obvious. It's the arguments against Islam are very easy. It's so clearly been plagiarized. So there's stronger arguments against Islam.
Right.
But if we were arguing Islam versus Christianity, I wouldn't suddenly say, oh well, now I've beaten up on Islam, I'm going to become a Christian because that seems the most likely model. Like, well, no, neither of them seem very likely. So I was just like, well, I really don't know a lot of answers about the world, and that's okay. Hopefully, we'll come up with something better soon.
Right. So but the point is, if somebody is expected to, how do I phrase this? So when we compare and contrast the hypothesis, though, or we want to have the most accurate worldview, or the one that seems most probable, then yes, it would do us well to compare and contrast them together. And this is, in fact, what is being proposed. When it is compared and contrasted together, somebody, if they are more rational, should take up the one which seems more likely in light of the evidence. Like even if both positions are wrong, I would want to believe in the model which better reflects reality or has a better percentage of reflecting it. That's the whole point that's going about here. And when we kind of confer that one model has more supportive evidence at one point than another, yes, I think that is a good way to proceed.
No, it's not. And here's the reason it's not, is because if neither are true, you've accepted something that isn't true just by rejecting something that you think is false.
Right.
It doesn't make logical sense. So what we're saying here is you may wish to compare and contrast, okay, but there's no need to if you're just trying to disprove one worldview.
Yeah, it's not requisite to do
that.
Well, so you don't just try to disprove. So it's not just like a pure deductive, disjunctive syllogism. It's either naturalism or Christianity, not naturalism, therefore Christianity, or it's more.
I don't think it even works with likelihood because the possibilities are virtually limitless. So debunking one really has no effect on the other.
You're not trying to debunk one. You're just trying to show, considering these two possibilities, which one is more backed up by the agreed upon facts.
Could I just straighten something out here, if I may? So,
sure.
are you saying that that's a correct interpretation of Bayes' theory, that you would always compare and contrast two worldviews?
You can, yeah, but you could also expand it to others, depending on the specific person you're engaging
or not, or just use one worldview. You can just use Bayes' theory to identify one worldview, and then change the evidence percentages in order to see what changes that makes on the outcome of the hypothesis.
I suppose you can. But
and
if
that's
you're...
what we're trying to do here, and you're sort of shifting the burden by saying, well, no, I want to contrast it against your worldview. Well, we're not bringing our worldview into this. We're just talking about the one worldview of Yahweh. And we're saying, look at this, here's the evidence changing, and so what does that have effect on the hypothesis?
It's improbable, but improbable compared to what, though? If you're...
The background evidence.
To your own?
You're just merely comparing the background evidence and what percentages you give to that background evidence and how that changes the percentage of the hypothesis being correct.
Look, you can in fact give something a low probability, but as long as it has a better probability than the other competing models, then it is still by far and large the most
That's shifting
probable.
the burden of the proof. Comparing is shifting the burden of proof.
The person who has the burden of proof is the one proclaiming that their position is correct. That's right. Who has the burden.
So that's Yahweh in this particular case.
So if I was to say by proposition, Christianity is more likely than naturalism, that in itself is comparing worldviews. If that's just the claim, then that's all I would have the burden of proving. If I was just to say it's true because it's probable, then like it has over 50%, that would be a different claim.
So this is slightly changing, I think, JD, and I'd like you to address this side because I haven't been in the whole conversation. So Max is now saying, well, he actually claimed only that Yahweh was more likely than methodological naturalism. Was that really what the claim was?
Well, I mean, more likely than philosophical. It had to be philosophical naturalism. I mean,
philosophical.
You can't say, oh, I have an argument against the methodology. It's like, what was that?
So if that was the claim, then we do deserve to compare both worldviews. If the claim was...
Oh, well, yeah, I'm kicking his ass on philosophical naturalism. That's fine, but it's not really necessary. If I attack his and he attacks mine, we're not really getting anywhere. It's like, is there reason? Which one is there reason to think is true? Well, obviously, I think naturalism's kind of got a head start there, given that our primary way of understanding the world is by assuming naturalism. Yeah. I mean, this is not just science. In our daily lives, we don't assume that a unicorn is going to pop out of the garden and start watering for us. So we're already assuming most of the time that the natural is what there is. We don't assume that anything's going to stand. And people who do tend to get locked up, and I think for good reason. And so if we're going to stick to induction, religion is in trouble.
All right. So we could just start discussing that now because it
more
seems
importantly, look at that.
Because right now it looks like we kind of both agree on the notion that we.
If I could just get in one more time, just to steer things back to where I think it was, which is to say, so if you were only claiming that one worldview was more likely than another, then of course you're not claiming the truth of either view, are you?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Right. Correct.
So you're not saying philosophical naturalism is less likely, therefore Yahweh is true.
Yeah, it's just what you would say is that compared between the two, my worldview is the most probable, and I have yet to see, or you could even expand it a little to say, I have yet to see one which comes close, or which is as true, or if not more, than my own worldview. In fact, I think we all take the worldview we have because we assume it is the most probable one we have.
Right. So what claim did you make at all? Because I'm struggling to see a claim now.
I didn't make any claim at all. I'm just trying to expound on the method that a lot of philosophers...
There must have been a claim somewhere.
No,
I would have hoped. Otherwise, so we're just talking methodology? Or let's talk Bayes' theorem.
I was just talking about the methodology that philosophers of religion use. That's it.
I think just optimist reasons make this entire Bayesian bit unnecessary. How many assumptions are inherent in Christianity? Or any religion that posits a personal God? How many assumptions are there versus how many assumptions are necessary? Because you can't. I don't think Bayes' theory argues that Occam's razor is not a thing. Don't multiply necessities unnecessarily, and so that kind of shoots you in the foot coming out of the gate. So how quickly you come
no,
to
it doesn't.
Christianity is more likely.
Right. So in terms of the so in terms of the amount of entities, Christians would say that they posit more entities, but they are indeed
I'm sorry,
necessary.
that's what Christians would say. I'm talking to you.
Because when you don't have those entities, your worldview is deficient. It's not that we just have them and they're just standing there without any merit. It's just that they're there, and without them, you have a deficiency of explaining various other things. That's all that's being claimed. And as to your point on induction, in terms of explaining naturalism's success, considering that the natural world is constantly acting towards the laws of nature as they are put in place, methodological naturalism with a success rate of 98% would just be as good as explaining that as pure philosophical naturalism states 100% of events are natural. There isn't really too much that it explains there in terms of that.
I just think in this case, it is a good idea, because if we're going by the facts, then arguing against, I don't want to say that naturalism is the default position, but it is kind of all we observe. So we usually don't, the person who posits, fairies in the garden, we don't say, well, that's a crap. Well, you prove it's a bunch of crap. Well, hold on a sec. That's a pretty grandiose claim. So
have you ever seen a virtual particle before?
No, but that's predictable. There's a predictive model that demonstrates that virtual particles are a thing. If I'm unaware of any such similar thing for, say, Jesus resurrecting.
Okay. So here what we have is not the thing itself. So what we have here is not us observing the virtual particle existing, but us kind of but what we have rather is us looking at the effects that we have, and from there kind of going to look at the nature of the entity itself. And that's kind of what we're looking at. So likewise, even though we're not observing the supernatural, what we are doing is looking at some facets of the natural world, facts about it, and then saying that said facts make one worldview more likely than another, or one model more likely than another. In the same way, or even a similar way, how a physicist would construct models to explain their observations.
I'm still curious how you get around the principle of parsimony when you're positing stuff that we just don't observe today.
Right. So in terms of parsimony,
let's just start with resurrections. As far as I know, there are no recorded resurrections as far as medicine is concerned. So why would you believe not only there was a resurrection, but the resurrection was caused by a deity?
All right. So
the most parsimonious explanation that historians have come up with is, well, it didn't happen. That this is basically an inventive narrative that was written down after long periods of time, and that it didn't actually occur, especially given the discrepancies in the account. But obviously, as a Christian, you believe it really did happen, or at least I assume. I mean, there are some Christians who don't believe in the resurrection, but even I think that's iffy.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. That is pretty iffy. In terms of the resurrection, in terms of the resurrection, what I would say there is, it is not something which I can say is proven through the means of history. I would be gladly to point that out right then and there. But it's not really just, and yes, the resurrection is essential to the Christian worldview. Yet at the same time, it is not in itself which we would claim that Christianity as a whole is correct, just in that particular thing, but rather it's in terms of the whole of the model as opposed to any particular one. So in terms of models of quantum mechanics, for example, there are certain models that posit whole other universes existing. We don't observe these universes directly, but we require them.
Actually, they don't still posit the universe. They run the numbers, and that is a multiverse is a consequence of the model. It's not something that's assumed beforehand.
It is holding to the resurrection would be a consequence of holding to the Christian worldview, and wouldn't be something you would just get to at the outset. You don't have to argue. Let me just finish my point. You don't have to argue from the resurrection to the truth of the Christian worldview. You can get to the truth of the Christian worldview and hold to the resurrection as a consequence of it.
Right, like I said, how does that work? How do you? Well, what is the Christian model, and what is the evidence to support it? Because that's kind of the starting point for most models. Like, okay, well, how are we getting there in the first place?
All right, so the various kind of points to say of the Christian model are the naturalism. I'd say it better explains. I would say it better explains metaethics, and ethics than a naturalistic model does. I would also state that it explains.
Sorry, metaethics?
Metaethics is the discipline of ethics that speaks about moral truths or moral statements.
I didn't know metaethics needed an explanation. Is metaethics the explanation?
Well, I mean, in our daily lives, we have people saying that there are things we ought to and ought not to, and a lot of them we actually agree should be obeyed by the populace as a whole, and that there is some, and either that there is some truth maker to them, that they're objective, that they're subjective, and we have some kind of explanation to get there, or that they're kind of fixed. They're non-cognitive, that they don't even make any kind of rational sense. They're just our emotions coming out. So now, when it comes, those are things we observe people say, and that is something which I think is easier explained on Christianity than on a naturalistic model. So that is
easier explained doesn't really mean anything if it's false. I mean, I can come with an answer that's far simpler, but obviously it's likely not the case.
Okay, could one of you explain roughly where we are in the conversation?
Just a second.
I'm kind of either losing the will to live, or JD, maybe you'd like to sum up what's been said to this point.
Hey, I'm building a wall. Your guess is as good as mine.
I've kind of lost where we were. I was with us 5 minutes ago, and now you guys had a back and forth, and I couldn't follow it.
You want somebody to reevaluate everything for you, or what?
That would be nice, yeah, and catch up other people that have come in.
I'm not even sure what we're arguing about. I mean, we seem to be just not really talking about anything yet.
Yeah.
More like, base theory is neat, and Christianity, well, there's this resurrection, maybe, and it's kind of like there's a model. We haven't actually gone to the point where we actually discuss, like, why is one more likely true than the other? Like, well, metaethics.
Well, hang on. I was interested in Max's claim that you don't need to use the resurrection in order to substantiate God's existence, that you can do it in reverse.
Yeah, I mean...
How can you do it in reverse?
How do you derive the resurrection from a Christian worldview?
All right,
why is it
necessary?
let's
say that for the sake of let's just say for the sake of argument that what the presuppositional said all along was correct, as far as we can tell, and that the laws of logic do indeed presuppose the fact of God's existence somehow, and you couldn't make logical sense without it. Now, of course, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just saying for the sake of argument, or just for the purposes of explaining this, then and an essential tenet of the Christian God being the case is to also hold that Jesus rose from the dead. Just because you can't prove it.
Max, is there any chance we move this out of the thought experiment stage and actually discuss what you believe and why, and then vice versa? Because right now it's like, well, people might say, and for the sake of argument, what about, forget the argument, what is the actual thing that you believe and why you think it's the case?
I came into this, well...
You don't have to, it just makes things a lot more interesting.
That would. You want to, we could have a dialogue about that some other time, but I was really hoping to explore this further. If you want to, if you want to have those private one-on-one dialogues, feel free to call me up for it.
You kind of said something which I already objected to there, which was the Christian worldview accepts that Jesus has to die for people's sins, or has to be taken to heaven. I don't see any of these things as necessarily being a necessity of the worldview.
You're beyond. I'm not sure.
I mean, I can give you multiple multiple models which could do exactly the same thing for the Christian worldview without having a resurrection in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work. I mean, usually when I describe the Christian worldview, what I usually state in that is a worldview that exists such that all the propositions of the Nicene Creed would be true. This way, it's a creed that's pretty direct and something that explains a lot of the points. And one of them is indeed that Jesus rose from the dead. On the third day, he rose again and ascended into heaven. But the point, all right, but in any case, the point I was just trying to make is if that was the case, that kind of argument was correct, then it doesn't matter whether or not you could historically show that Jesus rose from the dead, because if Christianity is wrong and there's no logical sense to be had, then the worldview would be the case in light of the impossibility to the contrary. So that would kind of be an example of how you would have to hold to the resurrection as a consequence of the general model being the case. As for so that's just what I was saying there. As for the whole notion of what I personally believe,
okay, yeah, what you personally believe, that'd be cool.
Oh, I was just going to say, I really just want to talk about the methodology there. It would be, it would be something that would be a lot to take up on, and something I really didn't prepare for this discussion. Usually usually when I come into these hangouts, it's not because I have a whole thing prepared on that.
Yeah, fair enough. Helena, did you want to come back on what he said about the resurrection?
So,
sorry.
I'm kind of discussing the feminist view behind the scenes.
Yeah, Helena was looking around to see if anyone wants to identify as feminist. I'm like, well, I do. Like, holy crap, really? Like, well, yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were joking or not. That's how bad it is.
Well, I mean, equal. How can anyone not be a feminist, at least in the classical sense? Equal right, well, unless you're a Muslim, okay.
Well,
or
but it's
maybe
at
a
least
classical,
in the classical
Christian
sense
too.
that seems to be screwing up YouTube, right?
Well, yeah. Well, that's because feminists and what do you call it? Social justice warriors are getting kind of mixed in together. Like you can be one without being the other. I guess you could say all social justice warriors are feminists, but not all feminists are social justice warriors.
Yeah.
And so I am not a social justice warrior, but equal rights women getting paid the same. I'm cool with that.
So when you say you're not a social warrior, so JD, when you say you're not a social justice warrior, what you really mean is you're a shitlord, right?
Wow.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Sorry, it was an easy joke.
Well, I think the whole business in the elevator was bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, wait. What was bullshit?
It was a mountain out of a molehill.
Let me just say, I learned of this elevator business after it had already happened, okay? And
so did I.
Through the people who were bashing the lady who had made the initial complaint. What's her name? I'm so sorry to be so ignorant.
Is it Rebecca?
Yeah, Rebecca Watson.
Rebecca Watson. That's it. Right. Okay. So I went around. This is what I did yesterday. I went around and tried to find the original source of this elevator gate, and I found it. And it's so innocuous, I can't even believe that she got shit for it. So if that's what you mean by bullshit, then I would agree with you. However, I have a feeling that that's not at all what you mean.
No, not exactly. I thought it was weird that she even mentioned it at all, and that she warned people not to do that. I'm like, well, actually, what I thought, that guy kind of did it. Doing the elevator, okay, that might have been iffy, but the fact that he took no for an answer is already a huge step forward for most men. The fact that he was like a gentleman, like, all right, no, going back to my room, you have fun. Right. Like lean in on her, like try and pin her down, or didn't give her date rape drug. This is progress to me because men are.
No, I agree. So, I mean, what can I say? Obviously, yes, he acted like a normal human being, right? So, but the thing is that looking at the original video, and I can only assume that I found the original video. It's like she said it kind of as an aside. She was like, "Come on, seriously, I have to look, guys, just don't do that." Right? It was just sort of like a little aside. She didn't take it all that seriously, at least from my interpretation of watching what I think was the original video. So that blew up in her face, to me, is bizarre.
Well, the thing is, once someone questioned her on it, she then fired. It's like the shit that happened in our community with Sugar and Annabelle and Mark.
It's what came afterwards.
Yeah, it's like the one little comment got a response, and that response had a response, and that response had and it escalates and escalates, and suddenly Richard Dawkins like, I think I'll speak up, like, you dumbass, you're.
No, Richard Dawkins got involved in this little comment.
Exactly. That was what made it blow up. Is that he said he came out against her saying there are people starving in the world. We're gonna worry about this shit or something along those lines. There might have mentioned Muslim women getting beaten and raped, and we're arguing about this. And which just fact that it was him prompted another 1,000 responses, and it just kept going and going and going and going.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, at that point, it's no longer about the original thing.
Yes.
Never is.
It never just went somewhere else.
It goes that far, it's not about that anymore. It's about people trying to prove their own points, and the real issue gets lost in all the bullshit.
Well, but is there a real issue even?
No, I mean that's the kind of thing. It was a mountain out of like I said, it was a mountain out of a molehill. It's like, okay, the guy could have picked a better place to do it, but he gave the response we want a man to give when you say no.
Right.
They were getting along already.
It
wasn't a stranger in an elevator.
Right.
I heard it was some guy who followed her in there from a bar.
They were talking for a few hours in that bar.
Yeah, it was some guy who was at the.
A little difference, but not a whole lot.
I think it was some guy at the conference that she knew, or knew of, right? Like another speaker or something like that. Like I didn't get the impression that it was just some guy from the audience suddenly appearing, right? I got the impression that it was an acquaintance.
He propositioned her in the best possible way. You're like, hey, you want to have some coffee? You want to go to my room?
Oh, okay. So I disagree with that.
Well, I mean, the better way is
he said,
let's go fuck in the alley. I mean, that might be iffy, but I mean, he's a little drunk. They've had a nice time. He wants to see if she's interested in sex, and so he said in the nice way, like, hey, you want to go to my room? And she's like, no. Oh, okay. Took the first no for an answer too. He wouldn't oh, come on, please, oh, come on, I got blue balls, come on, please.
No. I absolutely. I mean, yes, it was handled by both parties in the best possible way. But her little side comment, first of all, to me, watching the video, really looked for sure like a little side comment. Like I don't think that she expected anything to blow up out of this. She was just like.
That's probably true. Yeah.
She was just like, oh, come on, guys, don't you realize? She could have said something like, you're not going to get a yes at 4 o'clock in the morning, so what's going on?
Except you are, just not from her. It all depends on the person. What woman will say yes or no in what circumstance varies widely.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm more worried about, I'm more worried not so much where and when you do it, but the response, what you do with the response.
Do you find that women tend to want to speak for each other?
No, we've not seen examples of that recently at all.
Anyway,
the comment that she made could have been a representation of trying to represent most women. My
interpretation was Christians were watering at the mouth with this, the atheists are beating themselves up. Oh.
Yeah, because atheists never.
No, we're always gentlemen.
It's because atheists never are entertained when Christians have been fighting in terms of denominational disputes. I mean, come on.
Can I point out a difference? There's a major difference with that, though.
No atheist ever takes a gun and... Oh, wait a minute.
Hey, he was not atheist. He was spiritual.
But not religious.
Somehow.
Well, not in Australia anyway.
Here's the thing. I hear people talking about, maybe just because they have to, about how this should now be a thing. We should look at legislation and, maybe we should get guards in school. Like it's going to happen again at your school. How many repeat school shootings have we had in history? 0? Our school was every 6 months.
This is such an anomaly.
3 of the teachers. We can't get teachers anymore. It's 12 of them dead every month. It's very annoying as an administrator. I really got to keep hiring him. So what's the job security? Shit, you're gonna be dead in a month. All right. Oh well, I'll work here. I have nothing reason to live. Yeah, this isn't a thing. So he's like, yeah, we need security now. No, you've had your shooting. You had bad luck. You're one of the how many million of schools in the country, and in a 1 year period, there's 2 shootings. I hate the whole. I mean, I get why. I mean, it's kind of an American thing. We're very reactionary. We wait until something happens, then we lose our shit. And I'm tired of people losing shit over school shootings.
Really, JD?
Really?
What one? It's happened once, so that's okay. It's not going to happen again.
Oh no, it's going to happen again. But I don't think there's really much we can do about it. It's one of those things that.
Of course there is.
What? I mean,
you can regulate guns a little bit better.
Regulating guns, it'll help a little bit, but it's going to help in such a way.
Yeah, not that it didn't help any other country in the world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Europe has
it didn't
all tons of these
help
things,
Australia,
right?
you know.
I mean, just last year, Britain had at
it
least
did absolutely
zero.
nothing for Australia.
It did
Just
nothing
look
for
at the
Australia.
stats.
On gun control, I'm honestly all over the map because there's just there's so many facts out there. It's hard to see what's evidence for what.
But it's just this blasé attitude that, oh, okay, it's happened here, it's not going to happen again, history's not going to repeat. Guess what? History does repeat. It's ridiculous. You need to have some gun control.
I mean, the thing is, Columbine was not a new. Columbine was not actually a new thing. It was just
not in America, no.
No, even in America, we've had one or two school shootings every year forever. I mean, as far back
every
as
couple months.
record, I looked it up once. Not every couple of months, not that bad. And the thing is, that includes shootings where it's one person shooting his girlfriend or shooting a teacher, not the quote-unquote mass school shootings where someone goes up and just starts murdering
Are you a
Christian? I'll kill every Christian in the school. That is thankfully relatively rare. You get one, maybe two a year. I think it's usually one. And so it's not something really to really work against. It's unfortunate that there's enough crazy out there that this does happen. But I don't think there's much you can do about it, even including gun control. Because kid will just come with a knife to school who knows how to use it, or a freaking samurai sword. And what are you gonna do? No one else is armed. It's this guy with a sword. What are you gonna do?
Well, how many people?
JD, if
I want to say that was
sword or
actually
a knife is
amazing.
can be taken down.
Hold on. I just want hold on. I just want to mention this is Sam Harris's argument for why just getting rid of guns is not the answer. That the one thing you want if you're a big bully is no guns. You want a country where no one's guns, because a country with no guns, the guy with the knife rules the roost.
Well, who said no guns? Don't think anybody said that.
True.
There are always going to be guns, but the firearms tend to be in the hands of people who know how to use them and licensed to use them, and there's fewer of them. Unlike in the U.S., where your neighbor has one, and nobody knows who's
getting these guns legally. These kids are not getting these guns. I'm pretty sure this kid did not walk in and get the gun at a local store. At least I hope not. It's usually it's kids for one thing. So, and they're getting them from their parents because their parents are shitty to handle the guns. But that's always going to happen. You're always going to have shitty parents. You're always going to have people who have all the important documentation on a gun, but are just shit with it. Or the kid knows where the key is because hey, kids are smart, relatively. And again, it's one of those things. It doesn't happen often enough for it to really have. I don't think to have a significant impact on legislation for guns. You don't stop rare events with the law. You stop uncommon events, not the ones that happen twice a year.
Twice a year.
If that. But the thing is, we're in a country of close to 300 million, maybe a little more, and you have a much better chance of getting hit by lightning. We don't have a whole lot of legislation about not getting hit by lightning. They don't mandate that kids be indoors during thunderstorms.
Maybe the YouTube feminists could take up the lightning problem.
The lightning problem?
Yeah.
Calling me confused? What?
I'm not familiar with that.
It's your chance of getting killed in a mass shooting at school is, I'm pretty sure you're more likely to get hit by lightning. In fact, far more likely. But we don't pass a whole lot of legislation saying, all kids have to be indoors at X time because we don't want to get hit by lightning. Now, we do try to a lot of people get their kids out of pools and stuff, but it's not like, yeah, you're outside in the war, it's raining and I hear thunder, you need to get inside because that's the law because we don't want you to get hit by lightning.
But
to me, it's like that. I kind of also get why people still freak out about it because it's our children, and when it comes to children, everyone loses their mind. Understandably, it's instinctual.
Not me.
Did someone say not me?
Yeah, that was me.
Not me, fuck the kids.
You're going to make a great parent there, Unicorn.
I don't plan to be one, sir.
I'm not all reduction in school shootings. I want more school shootings. Get rid of the little farts. God damn it. Always treading on my lawn and screwing up my rose bushes. Screw them.
But we actually do pass legislation around lightning. Don't we make sure that there's regulations on houses, buildings, to make sure that they don't conduct lightning, things like that. Or at least if they're hit.
I don't know if that's the law. No. I think it's like some people are like, yeah, sure, might as well go ahead and have a lightning rod up there, because duh. But
I don't think there's a law that...
It might be.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember. I think that we had our inspection.
Like electronics, not really people inside. Most people, if your house were to get hit by lightning, it would screw up your electronics. It wouldn't really kill you. Well, it could set your house on fire.
It could set your house on fire.
It'd be kind of an indirect way of dying by lightning. Like, hey, it missed me. Ow, I'm on fire. So yeah, so that's my position on school shootings. Stop talking about it. It's just a whole media frenzy. Let's we've got a new news cycle. Let's talk about this forever. We're never gonna let it go until some famous person takes off her clothes and run a camera, and then we'll follow.
That could be arranged.
It could be arranged.
Yeah. Please let it be Selena Gomez.
Oh. Man. So, yeah. Anyway. Like, do we have a problem with men in elevators taking no for an answer?
Yes.
Damn, it's an epidemic. We need to fix that.
I thought I heard Tommy Hall talking about that the other day.
That is man-spreading.
Don't pick on Tommy Hall. Leave him alone.
All this man-spreading.
Man's brain's bleeding already.
All these terrible things that men do.
I heard something interesting earlier today. I don't know if we have a specific subject we want to stick to.
Yeah, it's been going all over the place. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was a Satanist in Nadia's hangout who was blaming atheists for stuff.
Yay! A Satanist blaming atheists for stuff? Isn't that contradictory?
No. It was kind of odd because he was the typical Satanist, the one that doesn't actually think Satan's real. What's Palm? I think his name is.
Palm Jam?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Yeah. I heard about this, and I'm just like, what? What?
Palm Jam is a Satanist?
That surprises me.
He's all over the place. That guy's he doesn't know what's going on.
It's just like fucking Jungle Jargon's ethnicity. It can be anything.
Hey, he's from the Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm going back in with Jungle Jargon because he tried to take some shots at me earlier.
I just got to say, I'm pretty sure Palm isn't a Satanist, but there was another Satanist which I came across recently.
It's such a silly position. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, how can you be a Satanist when Satanists, in general, don't actually believe Satan's real? How does that work?
It was supposed to be a joke. It was supposed to be they brought it up as a way of contradicting Christians.
No, man, it's
Satanism is a bastard. So Anton Levine, Satanism is a bastardization of Ayn Rand's objectivism, which in turn was a bastardization of Nietzsche's Übermensch philosophy. The whole notion is the world exists so you could be a big, powerful guy, so that you could obtain your full potential and you don't let shit like religion get in the way. That's the general philosophy. And they use the Satan character as kind of the main illustration of.
Yeah, but that's nice, but really, look at those cows. That's just a lot of cows.
Look at just to quickly go back to something. Just to quickly go back to something, which was the lightning rods. There's an ironic story, I think, in that when the lightning rod was invented in this country, of course, see there are no laws, etc. But the people that first took up putting lightning rods on their buildings, of course, were the church, and it was mandated that every church should have a lightning rod on it.
That's hilarious.
There's something funny about that. Isn't God protecting your church? We need a lightning rod.
Yeah.
That is too funny.
That's good old Zeus doing the work, I don't like that church. That church.
Yeah. There's a comedian said something. I think it was I forget his name. British guy. Does a lot of deadpan, very dark humor.
Jimmy Carr.
Yeah, Jimmy Carr. I love that guy.
Jimmy Carr. Oh yes.
God will protect me. God will save me. It's like like there's a tornado or a hurricane coming, and he's like, "Who do you think?" Or a tornado this time. He's like, I'll stay in here. God will protect me. He's like, "Who do you think's sending the tornado?" Good point. I'm gonna go in the shelter.
Because Christians don't believe that there are laws of nature that have their own kind of
I also believe that being a believer, I assume it offers some protection, doesn't it? Believing in God?
Well,
praising the correct deity, it should get you some kind of perk, other than, well, maybe when you die you'll get an apple if you pick the right one.
I think you're taking that armor of God thing too seriously.
For me, it's that the insurance companies don't pay out on acts of God, and yet still, that's the reason the church put damn things on their roofs.
Yeah, I still think it's weird to have any kind of disasters at all when you have a loving God protecting you, or at least you expect a loving God to protect you, except he doesn't.
Yeah,
it's like he's not there.
When Christians started worshiping the God of Israel, we were under the assumption that we would be persecuted and even martyred for it. It wasn't because we thought God would give us special favors. I mean, that to me is indicative of.
They used to carry the Ark of Covenant into war.
Well, I mean, this goes back to the whole divine hiddenness argument that a personal God that not only doesn't get personal but doesn't seem to care about your safety or whether you're tortured by some madman. Just doesn't
You're being tested. You're being tested.
Well, I'm failing the test. I'm like, you're not real. I mean, it's one thing to think, if you want to believe I'm loving or not, and I'm going to fuck with you and see if you still think I'm loving. But I don't even think you're real yet. We need the first step. I actually think you're real. Okay, now offer me tests. Now I think you're an actual thing. But like I keep saying, the first step is missing.
When doing anything or participating in anything, yes, usually have God involved. When I believe it was Joseph, when he was captured and put into Egypt, he was in jail. God was still with him, and he was still in a physical prison. The point of the matter is, we go through our lives knowing that we pay patronage and full honor to God in everything we do. It doesn't mean we get any special privileges. If God so happens to bless us with something, that's great. If He doesn't, He's not obliged to.
Hey Max, have you seen
my worship on God is not contingent upon any favors He does for me. I worship God because, at least in the Christian sense, it's recognizing His place within the universe.
Are you familiar with the Messenger, the movie called The Messenger?
I am not, no.
It was a reference to Joan of Arc. Near the end of the movie, this I guess reference to a god turned to her and said, you saw all these supposed messages from this god, and yet, you assumed they were messages rather than things. And the best part was the sword. He says, you chose this as a message. This god dropped the sword in this field for you to find, and yet you didn't take into account any other ways that sword could have gotten there. And then he lists off a whole bunch of ways and other ways in which it got there, and until she finally realizes that she may have overthought it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't overthink God.
Yeah, well overthinking's a sign of the devil.
If you fucking well can.
Of course you can. There's lots of them out there. Tommy Hall, number one.
Wait, Tommy Hall thinking. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
That's true. Goes with what? G-Man, Arcane.
I thought we were gonna discuss political vaginas. What happened to that?
Yeah, well, it got. I don't know. It started.
It wasn't
sidetracked.
We were kind of all over the place. I mean,
there wasn't enough vaginas in there.
What is a political vagina?
That's what we're talking about. Well, we're talking about feminism, women's rights. They become political vaginas. They do. You laugh, but it's true. Like we start politicizing vaginas and what you can do to them and what they can do.
I don't think it's really about what my vagina can do.
They tend to be pretty awesome. I'm a fan. In general, I guess. If women's rights all about vaginas, then I'm pro women's rights.
Well, I think it is to a degree.
Okay, explain.
I certainly.
I really don't want to explain any further.
I wasn't talking to you.
I go into detail, but I think it might get awkward in here pretty quick.
If we're going to talk about women's rights, it's having autonomy over their bodies to do, you know, what they want. So it kind of reminds you of that Gandhi meme that you see. You know, anything's a dildo if you're brave enough. So it's as funny as that meme is, it actually kind of illustrates something. If one woman wants to use, you know, this fucking spike gigantic jackhammer on herself, and one other woman doesn't want to, either one should have the right to do that. And it goes to the same thing as their reproductive rights. If a woman doesn't want to have kids until she's 35 and she's completed such and such goals, then she should have rights to abortificants and contraceptives in order to do so. And so that is one of the big issues that classical feminism covered, having the right to have autonomy over their own reproductive rights. We don't see, you know, these big fucking political stances being taken up against, you know, what men do with their dicks, even though it takes two to fucking tango. So we start politicizing our body parts. It's just like with the Free the Nipple campaign. Since when do people stop liking titties? I don't understand, you know, that. I was looking on Facebook, and noticed some of you remember Linitar. Linitar pissed off a lot of people because he wanted this woman to cover up her child while they were breastfeeding in a restaurant, and he got a lot of flack for that. You know, for me, who has a child, I'm not going to put my child under a hot blanket in California where it's fucking 100-something degrees because someone can't stop looking at my wife's breasts. You know, it just seems ridiculous to some degree. So we're politicizing body parts that, you know, shouldn't even be within that spectrum.
Would it be fair to say that it's women that do that, though? Because it's not men. It's other women that see that and they go, oh, she shouldn't be doing that like that. And then it becomes like this big
gee, I wish mine were like that.
Well, yeah, well, some women do it. I mean, some women are jealous because another woman has bigger tits and all the guys are staring at her. You know, that happens.
I say shit like that starts with women. It's like a self-hate thing, and then it goes that way. Because you'll never see a man start these kinds of campaigns.
I don't know about that.
I'm talking. No, dude, I'm talking after the fact. The root problem. Show me where a man has started something like this and it didn't exist before because a woman had mentioned it, right? Show me that, and then I can sit down and be like, okay, maybe I'm wrong about that. But these are always issues that women bring up first, and then it becomes something that what people classify as the white knights, they take them up later on, right? And it's not something that, and they don't even really realize why they're taking up the issue. It's just an issue for them now.
Personally, I'm just most tired of people seeing a woman breastfeeding a child and then making the same goddamn comment. I'll have what that kid's having. It's funny the first time, but it just gets boring afterwards.
It's funny every time. Shut up.
We all wish we were him.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I mean by, you know, politicizing vaginas.
No, you made a good point with that, Drag, because I say similar.
I thought you were talking about Hillary, but no, I guess something else.
It went from like women's issues to women's body parts, you know, and it's like it's strange. I don't know, whatever.
Well, we live in a prudish society. Well, I can say here in America we do.
No, we do in Canada too. Canada's like overly prudish and uptight about shit.
Yeah, but funny enough, we're more sexually, more sexual than probably the U.S.
Although.
Really?
I doubt that.
Actually, no, we are probably higher on the list as far as
sexuality.
Well,
we're more guilty about it, but we're still doing it.
Sexually free, I guess would be the proper word to say.
It's because we have to keep each other warm when we're in our igloos. That's how it usually starts off.
In our igloos. I didn't think you were going to propagate that.
Sorry, it was just too obvious to pass up.
So much to disagree with.
It is weird, though, what Drag is bringing up, how specific female body parts are both disgusting and desired. And whether it's disgusting or desired depends on the external environment that the body part is in. Right? That's weird.
More to do with
private. It depends on the situation.
More to do with private and public, I think. In private,
I find that some of the heavier religious people find it intrusive to them.
Well, I mean, if
they're the ones that tend to shout more about it.
Well,
So
I think if we go to Islam, that's quite a good example because, of course, inside the house, the woman has autonomy and is encouraged to be sexual, etc., for the husband, where whatever. Outside the house, she's completely denied any sexuality at all.
denied a fucking identity too, but I mean that's.
Yeah. Well,
But
identity as a wife is acceptable.
yeah, and attaché, I think it would be the is that the French term?
Right. So I do think that this is this is the legacy that's where we're coming from in terms of the Western civilization, and I honestly think that this double standard in between private and public, i.e., your sister and your, and non-sisters, that kind of attitude is clung onto for family values. If we were to treat our sisters as a little more autonomous human beings that can make their own choices, rather than being, this stereotypical attitude of, the brother being right, well, or the father being, I'm going to beat you within 3 inches of your life if you, think about anything sexual to do with my daughter, is just unrealistic, ridiculous, and a social norm which is held on to by. I don't think it is, no.
But what it happens so commonly though, that it can't just be like social stigma, and it happens in all cultures that are like completely separate by the types of cultures they live in. Like it seems to be a paternal instinct to want to protect your daughter because she's able to reproduce. Genetically speaking, you want to make sure that she can reproduce with someone who's viable for her genes and who's worthy to pass on genes through your family as well. To me, it seems very biological that you would want to
that's
protect.
that's not natural biology though.
It's not your
It's not natural
decision,
biology.
You're denying her agency.
I don't think in any natural biology is there any evidence that a father-type figure is to protect any lower sibling based on its gender.
I'm not saying that. You're twisting what I'm saying. I'm saying that it seems natural for a father to want to protect its child, and I'm giving reasons. I'm giving reasons for the female. I can give reasons for the male too. It's the same shit. But I'm just saying, like, it seems normal. It seems natural for a parent to protect its young. Women do it. It's the same shit. So why is it different if a guy does it?
Because it's a double standard. That's why. Like women and boys and girls are not treated the same in families, and they're expected to act differently when they get into society, and they're trained that way.
You're right there. So, but I think what's just being given here is an evolutionary account of how this emerged, and that is fair to say. I mean, if you were to live in a society where there was no contraception, where any kind of sexual act would have a much better chance of reproducing a child, then you would try to make sure that no one was, in fact, trying to engage in such activities with your daughter, because that could result in a child much earlier than expected. It could result outside of an institution where your daughter and the child could be taken care of, i.e. marriage. And of course, because we have a different society right now, we might change perspective, but it's still there as a remnant of our evolutionary past. And I think that's all Hold My Unicorn was trying to say.
I was saying it because I thought it was fairly obvious. I didn't think that I would have to like go into an explanation like you just did. That seems fairly obvious. Like, if anyone studies evolution, and most people here sit and back it up, right? There's clear evolutionary factors to the matriarchy and patriarchy and the natural gender roles of society. Like, they're not non-existent. They clearly exist, and to ignore them, I think, is kind of silly, right? But I know that it's different, right? But there are biological things about mammals that will lead us to do things socially in a certain way, and it stems from our biological evolution. And to ignore that, I think, is silly. And to me, it seemed fairly obvious. Like, of course, a father's going to want to protect his child. She's the only thing to him that can give birth that is a part of his genes. So of course he's going to want to make sure that not just any old dick gets up in her vagina. Right?
I agree. I completely agree with that.
That misses the point, though, Max, doesn't it? Because we're not talking about. It misses the point. We're talking about the gender difference.
All I
We're not
said
talking about whether a father wishes to protect his child. I mean, I don't think anybody would dispute that. I'm pleased. I'm not insinuating that that's the case. By raising the example, I was raising the example that there is a double standard between the way men and women are treated, okay, and that stems from the family unit. And what we tend to do is deny women their autonomy, and yet we're all for encouraging boys to have autonomy.
Yeah, I mean, you could pretty much
And
solve
that.
that.
Seems to me a double standard which goes throughout society.
That is fair enough.
But what I'm saying from that is that those things happen because of evolutionary reasons.
Yeah, I don't think that's being disputed. It's more of
no, I'm not disputing it, but I'm just saying like it's not a double standard if it's something that exists.
Well,
right?
no, it is a double standard.
We view it as a double standard. It's because we're viewing a double standard onto it. But if there is a difference between how men treat women and how men treat men, that's a difference that exists. It's something that doesn't require any type of social conditioning or anything. That tells me that it's natural and it doesn't need to. It's something that doesn't need to be combated. Right,
okay.
It needs to be worked with and maybe integrated more properly into society. But to combat it and try to get rid of it is unrealistic.
Well, okay.
Or I don't know what you guys are saying.
No, exactly
your last point, Unicorn, which is it needs to be worked into society better. I mean, I think that's what we're really getting to.
Okay, yeah, and that's kind of I say if we're going to say that fathers are acting as gatekeepers for their daughters, I gotta say this. You act as a guy act as a gatekeeper for his daughter's pussy, and then if we're going to try to look at this from a purely biological standpoint, we want the best genes possible. So if you can get past the fucking dad and get to the goods, then your line gets propagated via his daughter. So on the same token, if you have a strong bloodline as a guy and you have a fucking son who has like some of the best genes out there, you don't want to put his dick in anything that some woman who is half fucking crippled and can't really properly propagate a progeny. I'm using a lot of P words that will be prosperous for the future. You want to create the best possible groundwork for you want to have the best preference for the products of this procreation, and so that's how we should look at this then if we're going to be gatekeepers for people's sexuality and their sexual intercourse.
Right, and
that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean that is a good point.
Yeah, also, that suggests that there's something else happening.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else undergirding this. Because if it really were strictly biological in the way that Unicorn is explaining it, then we would expect to see a world the way Drag had explained it, but we don't see that.
So
we don't see fathers guarding their son's penis, right? So
for a man to spread his seed, just to look at the converse, that is usually a sign of virility and masculinity. It's something which is to emphasize his vigor. That's why, on a historical basis, it was considered all right because that's just typically what boys do, and that's just a sign that they're healthy and sexual about it. It's a double standard that evolved in such a way. It's not a good way it evolved. I think that any double standard is a bad thing, but at the same time, what we're detailing isn't what we ought to do going out from here, but what just happened in the past. We're describing stuff. We're not prescribing stuff.
Yeah, so I agree. We're describing. Yeah.
And besides, and usually it was the mother's role to take care of the child. That's who she would come from. A father could basically deny that he was even involved in the thing to begin with. There's much greater way of them getting out of any kind of culpability there.
That's right.
When you're 9 months pregnant, it's much harder to say that's not my baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so to me, it's more of an economic thing or a commerce thing. So maybe it's because our brains developed in this bizarre way, where we have so much self-awareness and we can put all kinds of implications on biological things that are occurring. that that contributed evolutionarily to this double standard. If you want to think along the lines of evolution, because it was obvious that the girl had screwed around, and so it becomes plain to everybody that your kid is pregnant, whereas it's not plain to everybody that your male kid screwed somebody.
Public and private. Yeah, they used to send the girls off in Ireland to England to stay. That was what they used to call it.
What'd they call it?
Well, they'd say she's gone to stay with an aunt in England for 2 weeks.
Right.
And then they'd come over and have an abortion.
It's interesting. So I just started getting into this YouTube feminism thing, like yesterday. Like I'm 2 hours into it so far. And what's weird to me is that some of the people that Skeptic. What is your? I know your name's not Skeptic Cat. I'm calling you that because you're a cat, and I know your first name is Skeptic. What is your actual name?
Skeptic Knowledge. You talking about the full?
Yeah, Skeptic Knowledge. Is that your name?
Yeah.
All right. So Skeptic Knowledge has shown me a couple of people.
I've been called Skeptic Cat, Skeptic thing, asshole, dumbass.
Okay, so asshole has been. No, but so I've seen one video by somebody who is self-described MRA, but what they're saying sounds like feminism to me.
What are they saying from their position, or what they think feminism is?
No, what they're saying from their position. And so in this really brief research, which has consisted of watching a couple of YouTube videos and bits and pieces, right? It seems to be. So why is she describing herself as an MRA when she, to me, is talking about things that feminism is all about? Yeah. And it seems like she's objecting to framing the systems that have evolved in a way that makes men look like they've been devious and purposeful and greedy and hating women. And I don't think that is a part of feminism. But I could be wrong, like I said.
Unfortunately, Helena,
it has.
I made a test, and I did. Could someone? I put this as a post on a feminist kind of post. I just said, could somebody define what feminism? Can't even say it now. Feminism is.
Yeah, that's like what I tried to do with postmodernism. You did one of those?
I did, yes. Exactly.
Okay, what happened?
I got called the C word quite a lot. Mostly men reacted by saying, you're such an idiot because obviously feminism is anti-men.
Right.
And that seems to be the side.
So the men who are opposed... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I go around saying I'm a feminist because I want to reclaim the word for equality. Right? Because it seems to me there's quite a lot of women out there, and not a lot, there's a minority which are stirring up quite an issue about how badly they're treated by men.
Are you aware of the big to-do that went on Twitter about kill all men?
Yeah. Well, I assume it's an extension of the position which is being taken by some women that are extreme, what I would call an extreme feminist, i.e.
misandrous.
Women are misandrous. Unless women are ruling the world and men are in the position of being second-class citizens, it's not
part
working.
of that patriarchy type concept.
Anti-patriarchy, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's extreme feminists, and they want matriarchy.
Yeah, they project onto patriarchy as being a lot more than it is, as if it's some conspiracy which is completely unified amongst men. All men feel exactly the same way that women are second-class citizens and are basically sex toys and this kind of thing.
And such is the reason why... sorry, I lost.
Yeah, so again, it seems to me that they're trying to redefine feminism, or what they're calling new feminism, as being this anti-men position because men still haven't given up the rights, and that's the point. They expect men to, take pay cuts and give women the money and things like this, as an example. It just seems to me an extreme position. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
if life isn't
like those
hard
feminists.
enough already, let's have a fight between the sexes as well.
It seems like those feminists that you're describing there have lost sight of. I mean, this is going to sound so cliche and stupid, but they've lost sight of the fact that men love, and that men love women, and that women love men. And so, if you start to get one-sided like that, you can really rearrange history through this lens, right? So this is, I think, perhaps the main thrust of the anger in the opposition, in these people who, to me, seem like feminists, but are calling themselves MRAs. I think that what they're trying to say is you're demonizing men, and it's not fair, and that can be very they can be very angry about that, and I think that they have a point.
Yep. I'd like to make that point. I'd just like to make that point quickly, which is, of course, there are men that are definitely sexist and male chauvinist pigs. I mean, I wouldn't deny that. I've met plenty of men like that. But the point is, it's not all men, and it certainly isn't any near the majority of men.
Well, what kind of percentage would you say?
It seems to me that they're putting a label onto some men and saying, look, there's a guy acting like that, therefore all guys act like that.
Here's a question I have. In terms of the kind of equality we're trying to get, why? Something that's always bugged me is that we don't really try to go for an equality of opportunity, but mostly try to go for an equality of results. Like, we want as many women in engineering as we would men. But if we're aiming for a result, doesn't that kind of discriminate against people who might be more qualified? Whereas if we go for an opportunity, any woman who does her best to actually obtain that role gets there just as well as any man who participates. And
not necessarily, no.
Mm-hmm. Also, another point I just want to make, and I'll let you address what I just said, Simon, is why is equality per se better than inequality? I mean, let's just to have a thought experiment. I would much rather live in a society that's hierarchical, where we have certain people on top and certain people on bottom, rather than one where everybody's equal, but everybody's just equally impoverished.
Well, if we're going to say that it's going to be a hierarchy, then it should be a hierarchy based on someone's potential and someone's ability to perform, not these artificial, I guess, barriers set up for some people to succeed and others to fail. And I think if we're honestly going to go toward, a really merit-based system like that, we would have to eliminate these barriers in order to institute a better model like that. And I think the original idea of feminism was to eliminate some of those barriers, but I guess you call them Tumblr feminists now really don't, I don't know if they've even acknowledged that was the goal and that was the direction, and now some of them are taking it into this entirely different direction and trying to, I guess, remodel society around what they believe personally would be more conducive for their success.
Just wanted to interrupt just quickly. Hello, I'm M.
Okay, and as to the first point, that exactly answers it. No, it doesn't necessarily give you a weaker workforce, of course, because you're not necessarily dropping the opening standards by which people need to qualify to do the job. You're just opening the net further to catch more people that can do the job. Right? So you're specifically saying, if women are able to reach this particular standard in whatever job it is, okay, then they should be given preference to be seen in the interview. You're not saying give them the job, you're not saying etc., etc. You're just saying they should be given at least equal privilege to be offered and have the opportunity to have the job. Now that may take, in terms of positive discrimination, it does take some discrimination against people that are qualified, that are on the losing side, men, okay, in this particular case. But that once that barrier is broken, and people no longer feel that women are second-class citizens and therefore worth less as an employee, okay, then the barrier is broken. You no longer need to keep those things in place which guarantee that a certain amount of women will be seen in an interview for any particular job. So yes, there is a certain type of positive discrimination which you have to undergo, and that worked in this country for racism amazingly. All right. So I would definitely say positive discrimination can be a very beneficial thing if it's seen as a short-term fix.
Are you familiar with the American Justice Clarence Thomas?
I'm not, no.
All right, so he's the most conservative member on the Supreme Court. And one interesting thing is he is against affirmative action. And here's kind of his background. Growing up, he grew up in the South. I think it was in Louisiana, and he spoke a language while there. It was this kind of very broken up, indistinguishable English. Like, you couldn't really decipher it that well unless you kind of come from the background. It was so jargon and slang filled. Essentially, he learned English as a second language.
He speaks like I speak, and when I'm not on air.
And what was really interesting was he essentially learned English as a second language. He got the highest grades in all his classes, even though his parents were dirt poor. Through his own accomplishments and hard work, he was actually able to attend major universities. And the reason why he was able to do that and get the job he had was because of affirmative action. And he came to really despise it for this main reason. So many people just kept telling him, were under the assumption that he only got to the place where he was because of affirmative action, that he really didn't deserve to be there. And this really pissed him off into resenting the whole process. And this is kind of and this is kind of.
But you don't get it then, Max, that the people that were saying that were themselves the people that needed to be moved aside in order to get a fairer society, because they were the racists. That's why we have affirmative action. Now, this man may have come to say, look, I really hated the fact that people said this because I was continually derided for being second class in my job. That's because they were racist people saying that. The fact that society picked up on it and made his life such a hell shows that it's more of an important thing that people break these barriers.
But isn't it on the one?
Of course it's hard for the people that first go in there because they're the ones putting their head above the parapet and getting shot at.
Right.
But unless somebody actually puts their head above the parapet and gets shot at, you don't know who the people are shooting. And they're the people we got to target.
You're right. Yeah, you're right, Simon. I think you made your point quite well.
Thank you.
Now, next time, shut up while I try to compliment you.
I
don't compliment him. You're just encouraging him.
Yeah, for people curious about the.
I don't do well with compliments, Max.
The language that Maximus is talking about is called Gullah, by the way, G-U-L-L-A-H. If anyone wants to look it up, and yes, I do speak it.
Wow.
Say something in Gullah.
What you talking about? Yeah.
Sounds like just a slang.
Yeah, people refer to it as slang, but technically it's not. Like
it's a different one. Yeah, it's a dialect, kind of like Cajun or something.
Yeah, he grew up in Georgia. I grew up in Louisiana, so his is going to be a bit different than mine. And I actually spoke to my wife in my native tongue. I think Maximus was there, and Gus and a few others. And actually, no, Skeptic Knowledge, you were there too.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, could you understand what I was saying?
For the most part.
Yeah.
I was waiting for her to beat on you at the time, but just want to. So I've been wanting to get stopped, or been wanting to chat to stop spamming because this poor guy, he's had 2 channels shut down, and yet his videos are like top notch.
Who is this?
This is me, Imam. I've had another one shut down yesterday.
His name is Brett Keane, and we should all.
No, I wouldn't put him in that category.
No, my next, the last channel was yesterday when it was shut down.
So what happened?
Well, what happens is that some Muslims sees what I do, and because I specialize in Islam, and then they don't dig what I do, and then they find a reason to go and protest, and then somebody else picks it up, and in this case, I was actually quite stupid because I went and wrote to the company who gave me the DMCA, and I said to them, listen, please explain yourself. What the hell is your problem? But it turns out that this was Rotana in Saudi Arabia, and they didn't take too kindly to me telling them to go and F off and give me free speech, and they just closed down my channel.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's terrible.
He's got like 6 channels, all dedicated to different parts of what he's been trying to.
No, this was the German channel, because I do not only the Gin and Tonic show. The Gin and Tonic show was closed down, and then together with the private channels of the hosts, because apparently, like inviting academics and chatting with them is such a dastardly deed that they need to shut this down immediately. Then I was banned from YouTube, but they never told me what I actually did. They never told me what the crime was that the Gin and Tonic show actually committed. Then they shut down. Well, before that, they shut down Stop Spamming because a company, 1001 Inventions in Manchester in the UK, decided that they didn't like that I was giving people the truth, showing them that what 1001 Inventions was doing was lying. So they gave me, I think, 5 DMCAs in total. So then YouTube shut it down. Then I countered them, and I showed that I wasn't. Then they put the videos back. Then they realized, oh shit, there's no more DMCA, so we need to put the channel back. So they put the channel back. Then they gave me privacy complaints. They gave me whatever you can think of, they gave it. And I counted them. And then I thought, okay, now I have peace and quiet until they pulled the emergency, the handbrake, and they went to one of these closed Facebook groups, and then I had 100 false flags, and that was the end of that story.
Wow.
Wow. Hey,
where are you from? Where are you from?
What? Wow. Okay, that's a difficult answer.
Don't worry about it.
And out of curiosity, do you speak Arabic?
No. I speak a bit Farsi because, okay, I've got German parents, which is why I speak German. I went to school in Tehran, which is why I speak a bit of Farsi. But I'm actually from South Africa, which is why I speak English. I also speak Afrikaans, and then I've lived a hell of a lot of time in Eastern Europe. I worked in Poland, in Hungary, and then now the last couple of years, I've always been in either in Qatar, in Abu Dhabi, well, Dubai as well, and in Afghanistan. In fact, in Afghanistan, I was the bloke who was in the hotel when the first attack happened, when they hit the hotel, when the Taliban hit the hotel. I was in that hotel at the time.
Wow.
Right. Wow.
Now I came. Now I've been. Now I didn't even know this. I'm a human being without anything. So I don't have this God thing. I don't need gods in my life or things like that. I didn't even know that there's a name for it. I didn't know that people need to be called atheist if they don't have this belief in one of the gods. What happened is I was actually in Afghanistan, in Kabul. And my boss, I mean, this is the CEO of one of the largest companies on this planet. And he goes to me and says, did you know that there are miracles in the Quran? And that's got me interested in Islam. And that's when I started learning all about Islam, read all the books, because if you're in Afghanistan, you don't do anything else. So I spent a lot of time learning Islam. And then I realized, shit, now I've learned so much. I know a lot more than most other people. And that's when I decided to make some informative, creative videos. So there's my life story.
So you're currently in the East right now?
No, I just moved actually. I'm back in Europe now.
Okay. That's good because saying that out loud could cost you.
No. I had a VPN. So even while I was in Abu Dhabi, or before that when I was in Doha, I still did this. The thing is that any kind of critical page is blocked anyway. You have a kata. Oops, hang on. I have a kata because this one I saved. The others I didn't save. This one I saved for some odd reason. I don't know if I can put this up via thingamajig, via screen share. Because this is so. Here we go. This is quite funny. Here we go. Now, how do I get this onto here?
I think
there.
Showcase, is it? There you go.
So this is what you get if you go to any kind of feministic site, any kind of human rights page, any kind of
is anybody seeing it?
Wow, that's nuts.
How come I'm not seeing it?
It's like a block like how schools have up on their computers.
Yeah, exactly. This is how you're treated. You're treated like a little kid that you're trying to access being blocked as the content contains prohibited materials. If you feel this is an error, then please send an email to help and so on. And this is how they treat you. They treat you like a little kid. Excuse me.
I actually like how one of the guys has a Hitler mustache.
So use a proxy to get to wherever you need to.
But that's the way it works, and this is how you are treated there, and that is how you are expected to behave yourself. Now, I'm not like that. So I went to the mosque and I had discussions with imams. I went to the Islamic cultural centers and I had some very, very nice discussions because Muslims as such are actually quite nice people. It's just that the system is such makes them into assholes, and this is the problem. And this is where the whole misogynistic stuff comes in, because this is the topic today, where females are being suppressed. Now, over 50%, let me just say, over 50% of Muslims are illiterates, because in some countries, 96% of women have no education, nothing at all.
Wow. Out of curiosity, which form or version of Islam would you say can best integrate with modernity?
Wahhabism.
No. That doesn't work. Because the thing is, as a Muslim, you have to believe the Quran is true. And as soon as you believe that, the discussion is over. Because it simply does not fit into the 21st century. There is nothing that you can do. You are not at liberty to take portions, parts, words, sentences, or anything out of the Quran. You're not allowed to do that. You need to, the number one thing, the first pillar, is you need to believe that this is God.
He has a website. I can list it on the side. He has the website in which his account he's using now, where he takes the Quran piece by piece, almost word for word.
No, it is sentence by sentence, yeah.
Sentence by sentence, and rips it apart. It's quite interesting if anybody's interested.
In terms of what the Quran says, though, there's what the book says, and then there's taking it and putting it into application or practice. Aren't there versions that can recognize what the Quran says, but at the same time say they don't apply to us in the 21st century, and that would usually be taken on by certain legal scholars, not the imams.
No. It's the ijma. It's the ulema. Okay, we don't have 3 hours, and I don't want to hog the show. I'll give you the nutshell version, which is that in Islam you need to believe that the Quran is the literal word of God, and the way that it works is because the Quran is completely ambiguous and extremely vague. It requires interpretation. Now, the primary and the text with the highest authority is the Quran. Then you have secondary text, the Sunnah, which is anything that Muhammad did. Because in the Quran it says you need to obey, but it doesn't mention Muhammad. Muhammad is only mentioned, or the word Muhammad is mentioned 4 times, but it might refer to a title as well. So it doesn't really say you must obey Muhammad. This is not what the Quran says. It's very vague in that. Then they came up with the sayings and the behaviors and what he thought and what he did, blah blah blah, of Muhammad. So in other words, everything is regulated. Like you need to go to the toilet with your left foot first, and you need to mumble the Bismillah, otherwise the spirits that are located in the toilet will enter your now exposed openings and will take possession of your soul and things like that.
The fuck?
No, it is like that, and everything, and it doesn't matter. even to the extent is when you are on Hajj, in other words, when you are going to Mecca and you're running around the Kaaba 7 times, like if your penis is dripping without a woman having touched it, you need to go and sacrifice a goat or a sheep, but if a woman touches it, you need to sacrifice a camel. It's down to this level that it is regulated, okay?
Wow.
Dripping with, like, dripping with semen, or?
Yeah. If you should excrete a liquid from your private parts and blah blah blah, and it's down to that level that Islam regulates even drinking a glass of water, whether you should be standing or sitting down or things like that, it's regulated. So there's nothing that is left to chance. Everything in Islam is regulated. Your behavior towards women, whom you are allowed to address, whom a woman is allowed to present herself without her veils and all of that. Because in the Quran it doesn't say this. Okay, the Quran it doesn't say anything like that alcohol is prohibited, women need to cover, men need to pray, or anybody needs to pray 5 times. The Quran doesn't mention any of that. All of that comes from the Sunnah. Now, because the Sunnah is also vague and ambiguous, you need to interpret this. From this, for example, you get in the Quran it says that, for example, if a man has 2 or 3 daughters, then when he dies, they inherit 2/3 of what he owes. But if there is a brother, the brother gets double than what the daughters get. So it is very specific in some terms, and this God didn't know much about fractions or basic arithmetic. Add everything up, it doesn't work. But then, and now we get to the ulema, now we get to the legal part of it, because there are indications in the Quran which regulate this. You need then the experts who go and work all these things out, that suddenly one daughter gets 17/96 of the inheritance or something like that. And this is done then by the ulema, by the legal scholars. And then, for example, they had 150 get together when a Muslim went to the ISS, because Malaysia bought 77 jets from Russia, and then they said, well, a Malay is allowed to go to the space station, and they selected one, and he happened to be a Muslim. But now, how does a Muslim pray on the ISS if you have a sunrise and a sunset every 90 minutes? How does he go and pray in the direction of Mecca if it's zooming past you at I don't know, 20,000 miles per hour? You can't do that. So they got together, and now you got all the legal scholars, 150 of them, they got together to discuss how a Muslim is supposed to behave on the ISS. Things like, I mean, it's comic. It's so stupid.
That's insanity. That's truly insanity.
You need to ask your God if you're allowed to leave Earth. You're allowed to. You cannot fly unless a God holds the plane or the bird or whatever up, and things like that. So it's very difficult to live according to Islam in the 21st century.
Yeah. I don't see this as strange to anybody. I think religion has always kind of been that way. Most religions that I'm familiar with have always kind of had these really strange, I guess, adaptations that they try to make with the changing of times.
Yeah.
Hey, Imam Father, could I ask you for a favor? Would you happen to be free for a pre-recorded interview sometime this week or during the weekend?
Sure.
Oh, cool. I know you don't want to kind of hold up this conversation with Islam in the 20th century, but I think it would make for a nice interview video topic.
I've so wanted him. I've so wanted him in here. I've watched his videos and listened to him criticize what's his name? Hamza
Torres. I hate that fucking guy.
Yeah. And,
join the club. Draw a number and stand at the back.
Yeah, and then you have who's the other guy who's attacking him right now?
Essence of Thought, Peter
Essence
Thurston.
of Thought is also on.
Oh, he's doing such a good job with that.
Yeah, so I would love to see
we opened
spamming to it too.
So the both of us are open. We opened the channel which is called Dawa Response Team, where we are collecting little tidbits, because what they're doing is they're going from university to university and throwing stuff at people. And people don't really have the time to look at this. So what we decided is we're going to take one topic and make very quick, short videos.
You and Peter?
One of the topics. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, what a team.
That's
amazing.
That is dope.
Although I'm kind of looking forward to his response to Karen Strawn on a completely other subject. By the way, all right, that's actually going to be pretty interesting. The only way Hamza Torres could find love is if it was on Ashley Madison.
As I understand from one of the videos, he is registered.
Really good.
See, I have my moments.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I also fucking hate that guy too, but for a completely different reason.
Yeah, but he's a complete douchebag. I mean,
I think
to refute because he's such an idiot.
I love how he tries to change the a scenario like what was it? Your dad's sperm, your
blatantly dishonest. That's what pisses me off about him the most. And he does it on purpose, and he does it with this smug grin on his face, and I just want to punch him. That's the urge that I always get when I see him.
The Lego one, a whole bunch of Lego in a bag and moves it around, and then pulls out this helicopter and goes, "Oh look, yeah, that's supposed to happen."
Yeah, okay, that's LDM. That's something different.
It's a different one, I'm thinking of?
Yeah. Okay, he belongs to... Sortes goes to IERA, the Islamic Research and Education Academy, which does neither the research, nor it's an academy, nor does it educate. They have a sales outlet, because what they're trying to do is sell as much Islam as possible, because the more they sell, the more income they get. And they used to make $1 million, because I still have the income statements from a couple of years ago. Now it's down to 700,000. So what they've done is they've disbanded and they've fired most of their people, the researchers, and they are now outsourcing it. And now they came up with LDM, which is the London Dawah movement. Dawah means that you are inviting people. It's sales. I mean, you're supposed to be inviting people to Islam, but they're just selling Islam. And the sales team now is LDM, which is the London Dawah movement, and they're now calling themselves the Global Dawah movement. So what that means is they've got 5 or 6, up to 10 people who are now wearing IERA volunteer T-shirts, and they sit in front of a camera, always in pairs, and they chat about topics they know nothing about, like science, embryology, cosmology, and things. They have zero clue what they're talking about, but they do this very loudly, and they have like these weekly videos, which are hilarious. I mean, I consider them the entertainment team. But this is how it works. And these are the people who are now coming up with this funny chocolate bar and the Lego helicopter and all these other stupid things.
Lego helicopter?
Yeah, because he says if you shake a bag and then he pulls out the fully...
Yeah, it's supposed to mean that over time, that atheists claim that over time the least possible thing can happen. So they're going to try and make it easy by...
thing. It's the exact same thing with the junkyard
exactly.
airplane. It's just his own stupid version with Legos and a fucking helicopter.
Yeah, so he's saying if Lego gets moved around enough, it'll turn into something real, into something.
Exactly. Now they came up with a video which I did last year, and that is when I did an atheist on a plane. I made fun of how the different religions all pray instead of getting ready for an emergency. And then I showed 2 females in the cockpit flying and landing the aeroplane safely, like really going into all the stereotypes, making them really feel shit. Anyway, they picked up this theme, and now they've made an atheist in an aeroplane, which is the same stereotype of the atheist in a foxhole.
Yeah. They're not even coming up with anything new. They're just regurgitating and rewording.
No, I made a video where I had William Lane Craig make a comment, make a point of William Lane Craig style, and then I put on top of that Hamza Sortzes, and I showed that Sortzes is even copying the hand movements of Craig because I put them next to
I remember that.
He has actually copied William Lane Craig's research, didn't give him any credit, and it was just blatant plagiarism. It was Jacqueline level blatant plagiarism.
And then I caught him out because I said, well, what you're doing is you're now lying about your source, which is a Dr. blah, blah, blah. And he says, no, that's not true. I just happened to come up with that idea. And then I took that statement, compared it to the video that he made where he claimed that he had just come up with the idea, and I showed him a speech that he made 3 months before where he made exactly the same point with exactly the same joke. And I showed him, so you just happened to come up with this idea from, just from the top of your head at every single speech that you hold in the last couple of months. He's such a douchebag.
Yeah.
What's actually happened to him regarding the Craigslist? Ashley, whatever her name is.
Ashley Madison, yeah.
Nothing. He denies it. He says his phone was hacked and somebody. This is a huge conspiracy. So what he claims is that somebody hacked his phone, took his data, entered it into Ashley Madison, then hacked Ashley Madison, and then got all the information, all the 11 gigabyte of data out just to expose him.
Yeah.
What? Seriously? He couldn't even. A better response would have been, I was doing research. That was it.
Yeah, exactly. I was doing research.
I was just doing some research. Some very sexy research. Come on, folks.
Well, that wasn't the only excuse I heard. Another excuse I heard was that he said he was looking for a wife or something, and that's allowed apparently.
No, this was this was one of the LDM guys who then suggested that it's actually legitimate for him to go and do that.
What? I don't even know why he has to go to Ashley Madison to find a wife. Can't he just do the honorable thing and marry his cousin's wife?
Yeah.
That is a reference to the Prophet Muhammad, by the way, who did marry, I believe it was his cousin's wife. He asked, his nephew's wife. He asked him to divorce her.
His son's wife.
His son's wife, right.
His son's wife? You mean Aisha is his son's wife?
Yes.
Wait, I don't think it was Aisha. I think his son had a different wife.
No. Aisha is Abu Bakr's daughter. That's something else. She was 6 years old when they got married. No.
Yeah, that was different.
The way that, there's no evidence that Muhammad really existed, okay, number one. So we need to take this with a pinch of salt. So it is said that he adopted a guy because his sons all died. So he adopted Ali, and then he came to visit him, and then he saw his wife naked in the room, and he was attracted to her. And then his son noticed it and divorced his wife so that his father could marry her.
Wait, I'm kind of shocked by this. You're a Muhammad mythicist?
If you want to call it that, yes.
I've only read about you people. I kind of find it very difficult to believe Muhammad didn't exist.
I know. I didn't in the beginning.
So here's my question in terms of that topic. Wouldn't the criterion of embarrassment kind of suggest otherwise? It seems like they had to look at the Prophet Muhammad's life and later on ad hocly come to some kind of justification for why he did stupid things. For example, being taken over and possessed by Satan to worship 3 goddesses. Who would, in their right mind, would ascribe that to the Prophet Muhammad?
Well, okay, you need to look at the environment.
Right.
Oh shit! How do I start with this? Number one, he was. Oh, fuck. Okay, you can't go and take Mecca because we know Mecca is not Mecca. All right, so that's because Mecca is hardly mentioned in the Quran. And if you look at the Sunnah, look at the description of Mecca. With the valley, with the river, with the fruit and the produce being sold on the market, this does not fit into the Hijaz. There is no way that you can go and grow this there, because there's only a well. And even in Medina, where there was an oasis and you had irrigation systems which the Jews built, but you couldn't go and supply all the fruit and produce that were mentioned. So it had to be further north. Now, if you go and you match the geography, all the different areas, then you see that the different elements only match if you go 1,000 kilometers north of Mecca. Now, the way that it works is the Sunnah itself is fabricated by people who wrote 300 years after these alleged events. All right, so there's nothing from the 7th century that says anything about Muhammad. Even in the Sunnah, it says that he on his flying horse. It's a mule actually, or in between mule and donkey, and he flew to the mosque in Jerusalem, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, tied up this burak, the animal, and then went inside and prayed. The problem is this mosque didn't exist. It was only built in the 8th century. So already we have a problem there. So if you take all these elements together, that there is no mention, there is nothing at all. The earliest mention that you get of the guy is them in the 8th, 9th century. Then you start thinking, okay, but how does this work? And then you look at where everything comes from. Now, if you look at the Nabateans, who were the ones who influenced the whole thing, then you look at the Nineveh, you look at the Jews, you look at the Christians, you look at the various tribes there who could all influence this, then everything makes sense. Then everything falls into place. Because then you have, like the first Umayyad caliph, the Muawiyah, he did not sit in Mecca, he did not sit in Medina, he sat in Damascus. Then you have the old fox, you have Malik, the king, and he was the one who realized this and who then said, hang on, I'm expanding. I don't need drunk womanizers. I need to get these people to fight. I need to get them to fight for their God, and they can go and drink and screw around when they're dead. And this is the message of the Quran. And this is what they got. So if you put all this together, everything makes sense. But if you take the traditional narrative with Mecca and Muhammad, it doesn't.
Okay. So,
yes, I've never managed that in 5 minutes.
What? You know what? Screw Islam in the 21st century. If I get an interview with you, can I please ask you about the existence of Muhammad? Because that would just be much more exciting.
Yeah, because it goes a lot deeper. Because then you have all the alleged sources. Because you have an Aramaic guy, you have a Armenian, you have Sebios, you have all these different claims. You have the Jacobi doctrine where Muslims will say, yeah, but this proves that Muhammad exists. No, it doesn't. It only proves that the Sunnah, which says that Muhammad died in 632, is wrong, because then he must have been seen in 635, because that's when the Jacobi doctrine came from, sometime after 34. So it's a difficult topic.
Well, I mean, it is difficult, but it would kind of be an interesting change, because I would actually like to play devil's advocate for this one. Usually, as a Christian, I'm defending the existence of Jesus at times, which I find to be a headache. But it would be nice just to show off that, hey, I'm just as happy to defend, or at least provide some reason to think another religious figure exists.
Yeah.
So, and I'm kind of curious as to how a Muslim mythicist, and sorry, that word might seem a little derogatory, but it's the best one I have right now, how they would see that claim. Another one I have is, but doesn't he have progeny in Ali and his descendants? I mean, there was a whole war fought over this in Iraq.
He was adopted. Ali then married his favorite daughter, and this is then how the Shias come in, because the Shias say, yes, there were his sort of genes through the daughter.
Right. But usually people who are fictional do not have children who can get married to people. So
yeah, but how do you know that she existed? The thing is,
was there just some guy named Ali who was there just this guy named Ali who claimed that he married the daughter of a fictional character?
No, but hang on, he was killed. He didn't survive long. I mean, in the beginning, Islam was so heavily divided. I mean, these guys were killed left, right, and center. So it's only when we go into the 7th century that we start getting any kind of historical data. Everything before that is wishy-washy.
It is
corroborative before that.
Yeah, but I don't really see a reason why some guy Ali would lie about being married to the daughter of the Prophet and then go to war with 3 other caliphs who he has disputes with.
Of course, because it gives him credibility.
It gives him credibility, yes, but it would be something which other 3 caliphs and even his detractors would probably say is just bullshit, and yet I'm not sure if any of it.
That's exactly what happened. This is where you have the divide between the Sunnis and the Shias.
So but how come I don't hear from Sunnis that Ali never did really marry his daughter?
No, they will say that. Look, you have the 4 rightly guided caliphs, which are the first 4, okay?
Right.
They will say that Ali actually is part and parcel of that. It's only after that it started falling apart.
Right, but why wouldn't they just deny that he was ever a caliph in the first place, or when he went rogue, and that he never did really marry Muhammad's daughter?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
I mean, yeah, so kind of my own incredulity, and maybe it's just me not researching this well enough. I admit, I'm just coming to you with
No, no,
what
no.
I have
These are
on
valid
hand.
questions. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So I would be kind of interested in this. Have you ever heard of? Oh man, he's a Christian, but he goes after Islam quite a bit. Robert Spencer, I believe that's his name.
Isn't he Jewish?
No, no, he's actually Maronite Catholic.
I've heard of Spencer, and I heard that he actually wrote a book, something about Muhammad not existing. But I've never read this, and I quite honestly don't think too much of his way of argumenting. But I've never really spent time on this because I find him too extreme.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do as well. For some reason, I would rather. It's kind of weird. I have more trust in terms of my counter-Islamic apologists in atheists from the Jin and Tadic show, like yourself. I really enjoy Klingshaw. He's pretty awesome. The Rationalizers, he has a very funny sense of humor. When it comes to like websites countering Islam, Christian-based ones, I don't know what it is, but I much rather trust the atheist critics of Islam.
Well, come on. Who is very good with this is David Wood. I mean, I can't go past him, can I?
That is true. David Wood and Sam Sharoom are probably the two exceptions I like. There is one guy who has made critiques on Islam, but apparently he turned out to be a complete fraud and liar. Klingshaw actually made a video attacking this man's credibility. His name I forget off the top of my head, but that's just one example of a Christian counter-apologist I don't particularly care for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't need. I'm not trying to proselytize. I don't need to have any kind of opinion. For me, I don't really care. That's why I look at these things. I mean, for me, it was always obvious that Muhammad existed. So I was very surprised when I heard that there were some doubts. And then when I looked at this, I said, hey, come on, it's true. There is no evidence. So I'm not saying that Muhammad did not exist. So I'm saying there is no evidence for the existence of Muhammad. With Jesus, I'm reasonably sure there's not, because if you only have Tacitus and Josephus, and that's it. So I read both of them, and then it's the end. In Muhammad, you have even less.
You also have the testimony of the Apostle Paul, who claims to have met James, who is the brother of Jesus. And generally speaking, people who are fictional characters do not have brothers who actually exist. And this is in one of the 7 books one of the 7 letters of Paul, which is considered by the consensus and majority of scholars to be authentically Pauline. So even the critical scholars would agree that Paul wrote this, and it was in the book of the letter of Galatians.
Okay, I don't.
Right. Even ardent mythicists like Richard Carrier admit this is probably the best evidence for a historical Jesus, but argue that a brother could have just been taken symbolically, like, oh, he is my brother, or a brother in the faith, something akin to that.
Yeah, that's what Muslims pull, for example, because in the Quran it says Maria, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Moses. And then they have to pull exactly this one and say, well, it's not really saying it's the sister, it's the sort of the wider family, and it's more allegorical than anything else.
All right. That's
wow.
That is pretty interesting.
Talking about an education overload, this is definitely it.
I gotta
love it, though. I gotta love it. I'm very happy you joined us, sir.
Yeah.
Sure, but I didn't mean to hog this. I was just interested in the feminism part, because I'm not a feminist either. I'm an asexist, but I don't think that I'm a feminist, because I don't think that women require special rights. So that's just it.
I put a link to your channel on, I think it's our second Crooked Table, and I mentioned it in the video, so I rather enjoyed your work.
Yeah, it's still a bit obscure because people don't really understand what I'm doing. Because I had stopped spamming, and I had a lot of like really innocuous stuff, and all this disappeared along with a video, which of 3 videos, which some people didn't like. Like my most successful video with almost 3 million views was taken down after like 4 years of running, and then I was told by YouTube that maybe the tags were wrong, and this is why it had to be removed, because the tag words that I supplied might be misleading. So it was really strange. Anyway, what I did is I decided to make this into different segments where I would have the anti-Dawa, the apologists, the stupid claims, and all these. I will separate them. So that I will have the more serious stuff, like the what I'm doing in the Imam Father, where I go through the Quran sentence by sentence by sentence, and keep it separate to the ones what Imam Sister is doing or what the Imam Son is doing, because these are more, let's say, in your face and provocative than what I'm doing there. So that if one gets pulled down, not all of the others automatically suffer.
Well, you know what you get when your channels start getting taken down, right? You're doing something right.
Out of curiosity, yeah, I'm kind of curious about something. The names, Imam Father, Imam Sister, these sound like if I didn't know any better or anything about your content, I would swear that this is something a Muslim would call his channel, to attract other Muslims.
You know how many people do that? Especially Muslims. You know how many times I've been called a traitor by Muslims?
I'm kind of curious about something, though. Was that kind of your original intent making the channel, or was that just fortuitous?
No, it just, I don't even know what led to this. I was just sitting here and I was really frustrated. I was fuming. I was so furious. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to go down. Because, okay, then I was at a crossroads. Do I continue? Do I find a new hobby? What do I do? And then I decided, no, I'm going to be really angry now. And I thought, screw you, then I came up with this idea, and then I thought, okay, what do I call this? Okay, let's make this father and son. Yeah, but I can't just make it father, son. I need to put something in front of it to identify this. Okay, how can I identify this that people realize that this is about Islam? And I thought, okay, what is the most Islamic feature, function, or whatever? It's like the priest in Catholicism. And there you go. So I thought, okay, let me use that, and then that's how it was just pure chance. It was the same thing with my German channel, because there's a guy who is a real charlatan, a Muslim charlatan in Germany, and his is called The True Religion. And I took one R out of there, or one letter out of there, and made it the product religion. But it sounds the same. So the word is almost identical, but it goes from being a true religion to just the product religion. That's why these people didn't like it, probably.
That's nice to have an expert in here. I wanted to have like multiple experts in different fields of religion as well as atheism.
Well, I'm far from an expert. I just study a little biology.
You'd be surprised how most of the people in here have some background on what goes on. Like JD and his philosophy. You tend to be all around type person. Then you got Max, who's dealing in Catholicism and Christianity and.
What is?
I don't know what the hell Simon does.
Can you guys explain what atheism is?
This is before you do.
Sorry, explain what is.
It's a really tough one, that one. It's basically the lack of belief in God. Some people
No.
Non-belief
I'm an atheist. Okay, I'm a human being who doesn't believe. So I don't really need to be identified by something that I'm not. I think that's demeaning. But then a lot of theists require me to identify myself as the opposite of what they are, and that is, theist believes that there is at least one God. So I am the atheist. I get that. But now, being an atheist, I don't practice, I don't follow, I don't have a doctrine, I don't have
There is no doctrine for it's a label.
Honestly.
So in terms of logic,
Max. No, Max. We're not getting an explanation of atheism from you, okay? We've got Wolf, we've got Drag, we've got you are not one.
Let me put it in a more simplistic
Come on. But
you don't believe in a God. You don't believe in a God. Your lack of belief does not define what you do believe. If you want to
let's compare.
then
let Wolf
sure.
finish first.
Let's kind of compare it to stars.
Okay, Max, let Wolf explain it, then you can give your point of view, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So basically, just speaking as an atheist myself, it's basically you don't believe in any gods. Like I just use that when I'm referring to like a theistic believer comparing my lack thereof to someone who does believe that stuff. Now, if you want to be referred to what you do believe rather than what not, that's fine. But that just describes the negative aspect of what you do not believe rather than the positive aspect. So.
Okay, I get all that, but where does the ism come from?
Okay, so
it comes from the Greek atheos, which means without gods.
I know. Sorry, I know theos. I know where it comes from. I know the definition of what an atheist is and what it's supposed to be. The only thing that puzzles me is the ism, the atheism, because an ism, like in communism or whatever, it's always associated with a goal, with an action, with following, with doctrine, with something. There's always an action attached to it. And now suddenly I am an atheism, and this is something that I don't understand. I am the atheist, but I don't follow atheism because I don't do anything. There is nothing that if I'm a non-golfer that I am automatically doing something else. I'm just not doing something, and that is not not doing something is not an ism. That's what I don't understand.
All right, so here's how I see it. When in terms of any kind of proposition, any kind of statement, you could either affirm it, deny it, or remain or refuse to commentate on, like take one position or another. The way I see
sorry. I already reject that premise.
Yeah. All right.
You cannot deny what doesn't exist.
It's going to
yes, you can. You can deny all types of propositions. Actually, you do not. Wait.
You cannot deny dragons because dragons have not been shown to exist.
Yet, well, you can deny the propositions that dragons exist. Propositions can be denied. In fact, they are.
Okay, proposition, yes.
They can be denied or negated. In terms of, if you have a proposition such that a god exists, or at least a god exists, then what you're essentially doing is saying that proposition is either affirmed, in which case you hold the proposition to be true and you're a theist. You negate the proposition, you say that proposition is not the case, atheism. Or you could say, I'm going to remain agnostic on this one and not really side either way. I'm going to declare my ignorance on the topic. And
no. Agnostic is knowledge, belief is... No. Hang on. Epistemologically, there's a difference between belief and knowledge. And the atheist is about belief, the agnostic is about knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, remember, you're talking to a theist here, Iman.
No, beliefs are something which... So knowledges are subsets of belief.
Correct. Now we're getting somewhere.
Now we are getting somewhere. So in terms of that, when you take up the mantle as a theist, when you hold to it, what you're saying is that that you think that there is knowledge to the proposition that a god exists, that it is something you believe in light of some rational justification. And in terms of being an atheist, you can take that very same claim and negate it and say that I can show with reasonable justification that such a being does not exist. Henceforth, atheism. And then you could just take the agnostic position and just claim that I can neither negate nor can I affirm either proposition.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the question here, which we were trying to answer, which is atheism, as opposed to atheist. Okay, and basically, I think atheist covers several different positions in direct response to the several different theological positions.
Right.
So that's what atheism is. It's a combination of all of the positions. So you can say, I mean, to me, the word atheist is a very broad term anyway. It encompasses several different propositions.
Incredibly precise.
Well, it's to me, it's several different propositions about the lack of belief, or
how is being an atheist a position?
It's only a position when you're arguing with somebody
on
who
one
is
issue.
It's a position when
if I'm talking about something, hang on, Max. If I'm talking about something which I positively affirm, then that's not influenced by my atheism. It's more my humanism, and I can talk to you from a humanistic perspective. But if I'm talking to a theist, okay, that's where my atheism comes in, because depending on the type of theist they are, and I have several different arguments against their particular type of God, That's the point. God is not well defined. Okay, so atheism isn't well defined. And so when we say it's a position, literally they're just referring to the fact that there's a range of different theist positions for which there are different arguments as an atheist. And that's atheism. That's my interpretation, and it's an interpretation I grant you. And an opinion.
Right. So in terms of recognizing yourself as an atheist, if you're saying that there's some rational justification for the proposition that God does not exist, then
No.
Which God? Which God, Max? You have to define which God before you can say it doesn't exist.
So the discussion of theism is based around the discipline of metaphysics, and in terms of that, what's usually defended there is a God who is the ground of all of the rest of reality. So this is usually called classical theism, where God is the most fundamental and foundational part of existence.
Max, we're talking about atheism. You're talking about theism.
Yes.
I hate to derail you. I'm going to stop you talking about it because we want to talk about different positions on atheism. We don't want to talk about the theist position.
Right, but in order to note the atheist position, the theist position seems to be relevant to this.
By saying that's enough.
You yourself asked which God.
So that's enough to say what atheism is, then, isn't it? We don't have to explain what the different theist positions are. We're just saying, look, atheism is a position against all of these different theist positions, whatever they are. That's what I'm classing as atheism. That's what makes me an atheist. Okay? I don't care whether it's against your position or Allah or the Hindus or the Buddhists. Right? I have different arguments for all of them. I've got a different argument for you against Matt Bell.
And I question this ism because I don't see an action. And for me, an ism is always associated with action.
The action is in having these different arguments. The action is in having these different arguments against certain positions, which have to be proposed first.
And not just semantics. I mean, just because it says atheism, I mean that doesn't assume you're automatically going to do something. That's kind of a fallacy of ignorance on that.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is why I'm asking, what is this ism in atheism? Because I'm not really doing anything because of my atheism.
Well, I think what Simon said was kind of on point here. The action is in the justification you make for the position itself.
Position. I don't have a position of being an atheist.
When somebody comes up to you and says God exists, okay, and you argue with them, okay, you're taking a position to argue against whatever position they're holding. Now, I'm not saying that position is necessarily one which you affirm, but you do take a position in order to argue against them.
Sure, but not in my capacity as atheist.
Exactly, and well, no, but it is. But you couldn't take that position unless you were an atheist.
Correct.
Okay. Let me just ask Mom a quick question. Do you think there's enough evidence to support a belief in a deity?
Sorry, who's the question for?
You.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Things are getting a little mixed up here. Everybody's trying to talk at once.
No, I'm trying to help it out real quick. Do you think there's any evidence to support that it could factually support a God exists?
No.
Okay, so on this one issue, you're an atheist because you just don't see any good evidence for a God.
How can I be an atheist?
You just said it. You don't think there's enough evidence for a deity existing or deities or whatever.
Okay, that makes me a human being plus a belief in God is a theist, right?
Right.
Well, how is a human being without that something?
Because you're negating the proposition.
You don't believe in a God. That's it. I mean, that's what defines you. I mean, what do you believe in, for example?
I don't. I believe only what I have a reason to believe, and this is why I'm saying if I am a human being without something, I'm just a human being. I don't need this term as identifying me as something that I am not. That's it.
You're not a human being without anything in that situation. You're a human being with a propensity not to believe what other human beings are saying.
Correct. Exactly.
That's your position.
It's not a position. It's just that I don't believe.
I know you want to say it's not a position, but if you say it's not a position, then you're in fact calling yourself really agnostic, which is you don't know. because it's not possible
also
to
an
live in
agnostic,
this world of
absolutely.
society. It's certainly not possible to live in this society. Well, that's fine. Call yourself an agnostic, and we're done with the conversation. You're not an atheist.
Well, I'm an atheist.
You just don't know.
I'm an agnostic atheist.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That's
Which is what
fine.
we all are.
If
Basically,
I accept this term, okay, this is I'm just
and
being an asshole.
here's
Okay,
the-
I'm just being anal here and
Yeah, no,
trying
that's
to
fine.
understand
That's fine.
what it is.
That's fine. So here's the rub, okay? Which is when you say you're agnostic, that's fine. But when you say you're atheist, that means you are taking a position against other people's position. Now
And I am not considering that a position.
That may not be a defined position, okay? In terms of I am right because I believe X, Y, Z, which disagrees with what you believe. All you're really doing is saying whatever you're saying, I don't believe it.
Correct. And I'm taking a position by saying I'm also an anti-theist.
Right. Well, that's a different thing altogether. Let's not get there just yet. Okay.
So now I'm taking a position and I'm starting to argue.
And this is what atheism is. Atheism, for me personally, encompasses all these positions.
Yeah, I personally think that agnostic atheist is a contradiction in terms.
And it is a contradiction. The point what you're pointing out here is saying, I don't have a position. Yeah, you don't have a position, but you are in fact being forced to have a non-position by the fact that people are taking a position which you disagree with.
Correct, exactly. This is my point, and this is why.
And we're calling that non-position is still a position.
Right.
Just a non.
Okay.
All right. And I know it's a mumble. I know it's a turnaround of words and stuff, but in this particular incident, because the claim is an absolute claim, the negation of it is kind of putting you into bracket of everything else. So you're just saying.
And this is why I was wondering how others see this exactly.
Here's a question.
I don't run away from the labels because I'm an anti.
When in any other kind of dialogue or domain of knowledge, do we use anything similar to agnostic atheist?
No.
For example, in physics, if you are somebody who isn't quite sure of which model of quantum mechanics or which interpretation is the one you go with, then you're not somebody who is an agnostic atheist in relation to one of those models. You're just somebody who doesn't take a particular position on it because you know you don't know well enough to take a position. That's my own. I don't say which model of quantum mechanics is correct because I'm heavily ignorant of that. Simon, I think, I'm pretty sure is far more knowledgeable on this subject than I am. He's demonstrated to me quite a bit. And I don't think he would be somebody ignorant enough to talk about the matter without being ignorant on the subject. But when it comes to, if he was to pick a specific one he would go with, then that's the specific one he would argue for. And if somebody else who was just as well known with the field of knowledge would take some other position, and there are many physicists who dispute that amongst themselves. Yet no one of them would say, well, I take this particular interpretation, but I don't know if it's true, or I don't know if the others are false. I mean, to take one of them is to kind of state that I believe this is the case, and I don't think anyone else is the case. I mean, there might be a different level of certitude, but it doesn't mean that you're just picking your own model based on your own whims and beliefs. Does that kind of help? At least kind of illustrate where I'm having a tough time from my own perspective. I think agnosticism is very different from atheism because when you're an agnostic, you're saying you don't know whether the proposition can be either affirmed or negated. But when you're an atheist, you can say, yes, the proposition is definitely negatable, that God exists.
Okay. Anybody else wanted to jump in? Skeptic, Groovy, Drag?
I just think this is not applicable here because as soon as you say that if you are a physicist, then you're already putting yourself in a certain position once again. So I don't think that's...
Well, not just because you're a physicist.
Okay.
It's more because you can understand it.
But I think we understand what you're talking about, and I accept it, and I just wanted to know what others think, and that's it, yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, the difficult thing for me here is that it's has to be contrasted against the position. That you're correct in saying that I don't hold a position until somebody holds a position which I can hold a position against. But in this community, we say that is a position. And in fact, some of us go further and to say now, look, let's not bother pussyfooting around saying we don't have a position. Let's just actually come up with a reason why we don't believe in God, and then we can say we have an atheist position for a reason, which is what we end up doing.
Yeah.
When we do that, then we tend to become anti-theists as well.
And it's like the same thing. I always come up with the example. I say sunrise and sunset, even though I know that they are factually wrong. But I accept them when I'm talking to people, because I know that others know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, there's a lot of loose terminology that goes on here, and I've come across other atheists which have a different definition of agnostic, of atheism, of non-theism. For me, I draw the distinction between deism and theism as being whether you believe in a personal God or not. Right? And there's nobody else on here I know that makes that distinction, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, I do.
I had a feeling we were getting quite similar.
Not to change the subject too much.
Yeah, go skip.
Stop spamming. Are you familiar with Bread and Roses?
Marie Nawaz, yeah, she was on the Gin and Tonic show.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
I was watching their show. I haven't kind of kept up, but yeah, I kind of like their show. They are essentially atheists, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And then Toronto has one as well, all about Islam.
Yeah, but they're not. This is not really. It's just the two chatting about topics. They have like quickies, and they will just have a topic, chat about this, next topic, and that's it. But you can't really go and engage in.
They have the fatwa of the week. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. And was it the stupidest fatwa of the week? And they also have.
Did you hear the fatwa that is being requested now because a guy used electric roller skates to circumnavigate the Kaaba, and he was on video on his electric skates, and now they want to issue a fatwa that electric skates are prohibited to go around this Kaaba.
It's crazy. Like it's funny to watch the show. They had the physicist Lawrence Krauss on their last one, which I thought was quite interesting. He must be really there to have Krauss on there.
Who was that?
Lawrence Krauss.
Yeah, I know him. I mean, I was the one who doctored him when he went in with Hamza Tzortzis.
Oh yeah.
Wait, you were the one.
He was on that. He was on Bread and Roses recently.
Oh, sorry. Say again.
He was on Bread and Roses recently.
Ah, okay.
So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
When you say doctored him, what did you mean doctored him?
We had a couple of sessions where we discussed the approach to take with sources, what he knew, what he didn't know, what kind of things would sort of get him off his normal stance and things like that.
Wait, how did you...
So the tactic to kind of have a chat in inverted commas.
Exactly that, to get him out of his comfort zone. Because I told him, look, as soon as he's in his Craig mode, there's nothing that you can do. So what you need to do is you need to heckle him. You need to get him out of his comfort zone. You need to go and have a chat, because he always says, let's have a... I don't know if you know of sources, if you know what he did with Woodboy, if you know... he always says, yeah, let's have a conversation, and then he doesn't. So I said, what you need to do is challenge him. Ask him, okay, do you know this about science? Well, if you do, well then give me the diagram. Show it on the board. Do you actually speak Arabic? No. Well, if you don't, then shut up. Things like that.
That's a good
strategy.
strategy.
That was a good question. Yeah.
The Quran is the most beautiful book ever written. Do you speak Arabic? No. Then how the fuck do you know? Really?
Exactly.
Yes.
Hey, I'm putting a link on the side to a Toronto show. Where is it here? Yeah, there we go. Called The Quran Speaks.
This I don't know.
I thought that might interest you.
Never heard of that one.
It's there's a link on the right hand side if you
Yes,
can
I
see
just saw it. Okay, I don't want to click it now because I don't know. Google does weird things. But I'll open it in a new
Dr.
tab. And it should
Shabari
be okay.
Ali.
Shabir Ali.
Shabir
Dr.
Ali.
Shabir Ali. I mean, he's such an idiot.
He's he tends to be on there.
Oh,
of course.
Him and David Wood, by the way, are going to debate one another.
What is there to debate? You cannot debate Shabir. I mean, he's an idiot. I mean,
Really?
he's useless. I mean, the things he's like a little bit better than Hamza, but the arguments that he brings, they are such non-arguments. They are so primitive. I mean, anybody who knows the Quran a bit can take him apart immediately, just like that.
Really, David Wood actually once said other Islamic apologists he'd have to prepare for. He wouldn't have to prepare for. He would just get the laptop out. But for Ali, he would probably need that time. So,
No.
You think he's overestimating
him?
him?
You know the Quran a bit. No. No. Come on. He's no better. He just makes it look as though he is, and other people fall for that. But if you actually listen to what he does,
So here's the thing I think you have to take into consideration. When a Muslim and a Christian are debating, we have to usually play both offense and defense. We have to defend our position and attack theirs. Whereas for an atheist, you have a much easier time because you don't have to play defense. You could keep playing offense. So you guys
don't you
have
get
a bit of an
embarrassed when you use something against a Muslim, which if this were used against you, it would make the same sense?
Oh, I'm sorry?
I was wondering if it doesn't get you embarrassed that if you go and criticize a Muslim, that if somebody were to turn that around and use the same argument against you, it would stick the same way.
Yep, I mean, this is why whenever I dialogue with Muslims, I would never use an argument, which is a double. I would never. I'm not one for double standards. When I go to dialogue with a Muslim, I would want to represent their religion in the best light as possible. I would want to make sure that no argument that could be used on Islam could be also used on me. If I have to struggle with the problem in Christianity, like let's say the problem of evil, I cannot use the problem of evil against Islam's idea of God because it works just the same with mine. I don't think the problem of evil works for either of us, so why am I going to turn the tables on him and try to show that Islam can't account for it in some way?
But then, what methodology have you employed to verify your belief?
Okay, so this sucks because we just spent the first half of the show talking about that.
Oh shit! I missed that.
I know. I have a video on the subject. If you want to see that, I'll just link you to my channel. And basically, my approach is in tune mostly with philosophy of religion. It's based on a Bayesian inference or an accumulative case method. It's where you imagine the facts around the world that both parties agree to are the case. What you do is you take those background facts, you imagine your worldview as being hypothesis 1 and the opponents as a hypothesis 2, and you see which one has a better overall explanation of the background facts or evidence. It's more similar to like being a forensics detective who can't really replay the scene of the crime over and over again. But what he has to do
without a God belief ever looked at this?
I'm sorry?
Has somebody without a God belief looked at this?
Oh yeah.
I have tons of friends who are I usually have friends who are atheists and they are subscribed to my channel.
Oh great, okay.
Right. What I try to make this for Christians as an apologetics show as well, but I also try to make it for atheists to help understand the position, the definitions, and all that.
I don't think there's an atheist who wouldn't subscribe to a theist channel, just at the very least for the lulz.
I don't.
Just for the lulz. Here, I'll link you to the channel, and then you can judge for yourself.
Great. Yeah, give me homework. Yes, I still need to prepare for the gin and tonic. Come on.
Okay, you can find all my interviews there. I've done 4 so far, but if you want to, oh damn. But if you want the videos on, you know, just me arguing specific positions, they're much shorter. And there's one video on my methodology, or my cumulative case method of apologetics. And from there, you could just see how I would generally try to make the case.
Great. Thanks. Okay.
Stop. I'm just wondering, like, I would be happy for you to be a guest on the Crooked Table, maybe a regular guest to talk about the weekly events in the Muslim world.
World of Islam, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what we do. We kind of talk about the events. We can basically talk about what goes on in the what do you call it, Christian and Catholicism and stuff like that that's been going on, but we really have very little knowledge of what goes on with the Muslim side of things, or the Islamic. Sorry, if I'm not talking about it properly. I don't know if you're interested in that sort of thing.
Well, we can do that. The thing is, because I need to do the same thing for the Gin and Tonic show, so I could just...
we do it like Wednesdays at 12 noon.
Okay, 12 noon on Wednesdays.
Yes.
You are... What time zone are you? UTC
Eastern
plus 6,
Standard
right?
Time.
Is that UTC plus 6?
I don't know the equation. I know
okay, what time are you now?
It is now 2:20.
And it's 8:20 here. PM.
8:20 p.m. So yeah, you're about 6 hours ahead.
Okay.
So I guess 12 noon for us is something like 6 p.m. for
18,
you.
yeah, correct. Yeah, that should work.
Okay.
You will just have to remind me.
Not a problem. We're just having a problem. Google Plus doesn't seem to want to accept your... Did it finally accept it? Was I able to contact you through it?
In the end, yes. This is why I'm here now, because I finally saw it and I said, okay.
Yeah, I think you saw the invite, but because I invited through the Hangout. But when I try to contact you through your I am... Jeez, I don't know how to pronounce that. Can you...
Imam.
Imam? Okay, sorry, Imam. I tried to contact you through Imam, and it just says it's still ready to reply, but I know you've replied, which is weird. So I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
We can try. I guess I could try through mail because I know I've contacted.
Okay, but hang on. Is this going to be like next Wednesday at 16? Then let me just add this and then see what happens. So this is the 7th.
Yeah. So next Wednesday would be
1800. And you are called Crooked Table.
Well, yeah, it's called The Atheist Crooked Table. You'll probably see it on my YouTube channel.
The Crooked Table, and I will find this on...
We have 2 weeks ago. We didn't do one this week because I wasn't feeling very well. But I try to do it every week. We have Dragnauts, one of the people on the panel. We also have Helena. You met her. I think you met her. She's very impressed with you.
Oh goodness, I'm not used to that. I'm only used to criticism. I always have people who hate me.
You've been surrounded by the wrong people. I'm just going to exit out. But by the way, Mom, if I want to get in contact with you, would it be just through Google Plus on this profile, or would it be something else?
I actually don't know. I don't know how this works, because now I see that I do have a notification on my Imam Father, because this goes to my Gmail. Okay, you see, this is the problem. This is now a problem. This is a drawback with having some multiple channels, because before it was just send this to stop spamming and I would have gotten it, and now there's always a delay in between. And now they've closed the other channel as well. That would have been easy. So I suppose
no one likes to make your life easy, it seems.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
By the way, can you see the side chat or the group chat on here?
I've got it on.
Internal
yes.
or external?
Internal.
The internal. I've got the
Yes.
internal with your two programs, with your two videos.
Oh, okay. So how about this? How about I just send you secretly my email, and you could reply back and send. And
I'm available. I mean, I'm easily accessible because I give out my Skype. I give out these things. You can contact me on stop_spamming.yahoo@yahoo.com. That's not a problem. So
stop_spamming.
Stop_spamming.
How'd you come up with that name? I'll never understand. Like, stop spamming.
This is also things. What happened is I was being inundated, and I was making. How did this happen? Oh, and I contacted a company, and I told them, "Listen, you stupid assholes, stop spamming me with your shit." And then I came up with an email address of this, and I thought I'm going to use this for all those guys who keep on spamming me. So I've got something to come back at them with. That is quite obvious.
Little did you know it was going to be your permanent name.
And no, I didn't know this. I made this up, just for two companies that were sending me spam, just to have an address that, that I could delete afterwards. And then what happened? A friend of mine came and said, "Listen, you took this video of me and blah blah blah, and I was wearing this red dress, and can't you send this to me?" And I said, and this is way back, this is like 10 years ago. And I said, well, actually, it's too big. It's 10 megabyte, and I can't do that. But I tell you what, there's a new company which is out, which is what you would call it, a new YouTube thing. And then what I'll do is I'll put it up on there, and then I'll send you the link, and then you can just watch it. And she said, brilliant. And then I put the video on there, and she watched this, and then she sent it to her friends, and then I started getting comments. Who's the blonde chick? And I thought, oh shit, now what? Now other people this as well. So I deleted that again, and then I forgot about this. And then, like I said, suddenly when was this, 2009, I started looking at Thingamajig Islam, and then I started making videos because I never wanted to make videos, but then a guy made a stupid comment on my comment. He was a Greek Muslim called Beholder God. I'll never forget that name. And then I made a reply video to him, and I thought, hey, this is fun. And then people said, Esses, you really owned him. And I thought, I like this owning thing. And that's how it started. So, yeah.
Well, you have a voice for videos, I'll give you that much.
Thank you. I don't even know what it is. I hate my own voice, but this is...
Yeah, I follow the same thing. I'm never going to hear this hangout again. Never, right? Because I'll just cringe at my own voice. Right. But I think the first time I met you was I know you were attacking some Muslim apologists, and I made a comment. You should do some Bible study work, and little did I know you had already attacked that situation. It gave me kind of a question mark. What do you mean? I was like,
yeah, because I first started with the Bible. Well, I got interested in religions when my brother joined a Christian prosperity sect, and he gave them thousands and thousands of dollars, and hoping that he would, and he never got it back. He got some personal signatures, and that's about it. And this is when I started getting interested in religion. I thought, what on earth? I mean, he was a down-to-earth, normal guy, and we were more like friends than brothers. And all of a sudden, he got all weird. So I said, I need to understand what it's all about, and I started reading about the Bible and stuff, and that's it.
Yeah. I actually started real early when I was young. I didn't believe in a God, and for some reason it struck me as one thing I hated. I despised it. I would go out of my way to find ways to counteract it.
I like this email. Mahmoud Hajj Allah, yeah.
So I'm really, really glad, I'll say it again, I'm really, really glad you stopped by.
Yeah, this is a great crowd you got here. I mean, you got a nice thing going here.
Yeah, well, I try to hold the people who have a educated mind around me. I wish I could say I am of equal value, but I'm probably much further down on the scale.
No, don't undersell yourself. No.
I have a knack for people, though.
Must be, because it's quite lively. It's nice, pleasant.
So I'm glad that you're agreeing to go on the show, and
yeah, I'll see you next Wednesday, and I'm very happy that I finally got somebody to talk about my pet peeve at the moment, that I'm not an atheist and I don't know what atheism is. And this is something, it's always nice to chuck ideas around.
Personally
and,
speaking,
to have
I think the idea of the ism was brought on by the concept that believers were called or it was called theism if you were a believer, so they kind of attached it to atheists, just like Darwinism, and...
Well, I hate that.
Yeah, it just got attached because somebody else didn't like the idea of it not being there. And then the concept grew into the idea that atheists are a religion now. And that we aren't. Essentially, we are not. We're not a religion. We're far from it. But they attached us to that point to say that we're, because multiples of us, think the same way. Well, we must be in cahoots. We must have a central power. We must have all carry the same idea and start praying to no gods and giving no money to no churches and.
Exactly. Okay.
So as I said, we'll keep in touch then. I'm gonna close the channel down pretty much now.
Okay, but then how do I do this next Wednesday? Are you gonna send me a link then, or
I can email you?
Or how do you do this?
Yeah, I can email you. I can. And we can talk about this off. We can talk about this off air. Let me just close it down. I want to thank everybody who was watching. I want to thank Stop Spamming for dropping by. And anyone else who came by, and thank you for watching. Please like, share, show us off. Thank you very much. Have a good day.